2004, Jay Stafford and his father Terry were attacked by a grizzly bear and her two cubs while skinning an elk in northern BC.
Knocked me down and started throwing me around, and she'd grab me by my foot and she'd throw me, and I'd hit the ground and I'd run for the guns again, and she'd grab me and throw me. She didn't get a hold of my head, but she leaped right in the middle of my back just after she had me on my side and chewed my leg up. I heard everything. I'm laying there and snap. You can just hear everything go crunch, right?
Wow.
He's gonna bury you and eat you later, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
A black bear will eat you right now, because
really?
they have animals above them coming to get the meat, right? Like there's a grizzly bear that's going to take it from them.
Yeah.
So they'll eat you. That's why a sow is so mean, is they have to fight their whole life. They fight. A sow is more likely probably to attack you than a boar ever would be. And a calf right behind her, and a great big sow grizzly bear right on the ass end of this calf, pawing this calf in the back, trying to knock the calf down.
Wow.
Right in front of it. We're getting wet from the water hitting us. We're so close. Right on the edge of the river.
Jay Stafford.
Yep.
Welcome to Kevin Unscripted.
Thanks.
Haha. Another one of these ones where it's been a long time coming, isn't it?
It has been.
Why don't I just give everybody a quick little, I guess, bio overview of kind of what we're going to be talking about, and it'll kind of get us going, kick us off, so to speak. September 2004, I think you said it was earlier, September 12th, wasn't it? Was your bear attack?
Yeah, it was pretty right around there, yeah.
Okay.
12th or 14th, I think.
September.
What did it
say? Well, I did a bit of a short overview here.
I could be wrong.
I took it from a couple of different articles, so I kind of put it all together because I don't like to steal. Like if someone takes this and then they go, hey, I wrote that, then plagiarism becomes a thing. So I take a bunch of different articles to try and make it my own. But in September 2004, Jay Stafford and his father Terry were attacked by a grizzly bear, sow, and her two cubs while skinning an elk in northern BC. The incident occurred after 2 weeks hunting trip, and Terry suffered several scratches on his back and shoulder. Jay was knocked down and bitten on the thigh, but managed to shoot the bear, ending in its death. Both were airlifted to safety after a 5-hour horseback ride to the outfitters camp, and the cubs were later euthanized due to behaviors learned from their mother. Jay remains passionate and an enthusiast about outdoor living and hunting. So, is that fairly accurate? Did it kind of touch on some? Where could there be some improvement?
My dad's leg was broke. He was covered in scars. If it had been a warm day, we'd have been ripped to shreds.
Oh.
My body, I got holes still all over my body.
It mauled you pretty good, didn't it?
Yep. Oh, yeah. I was thrown everywhere.
Really?
It's like a 8-foot radius, probably. I covered, picked up, thrown. Yeah.
Wow.
She went and hit Dad in the back and knocked him down a creek and broke his leg. He hobbled around the hospital claiming saying that his leg was hurt, and they finally they had done x-rays on him, and then 2 days later, him in and out visiting me in the hospital, they said, oh, you better come and get a cast on, your leg's broke.
But after he's hobbling around?
Oh, yeah.
They didn't catch that?
No. I was a week and a half.
Holy.
I got another, I was a week, and they put a cast on my arm being broken.
Really?
After I come off a horse, yeah. But that's another
story. This is in
story.
2004. Oh, is it? Well, fair enough. Yeah, I'll tell you what. I got a video because I wanted to put things into perspective a little bit. If you're listening to this, you're going to get some of the sound effects, but you can watch the video a little bit later. But have you ever seen that show by Leonardo DiCaprio in 2015?
Yeah,
called
I can't stand that guy.
The Residence?
That was so... It's funny. Justin at work, he wanted me to watch it because he thought it would scare me real bad because it was bear attack. So I brought it home, and then I didn't have time to watch it. So then Josh at work, he takes it home, and he's watching it. And right in the middle of the bear attack, there's a black bear on his back porch.
Oh.
Ripping his garbage apart.
Oh.
So he opened the back door up and shot the black bear, and then phoned me up. I went over and helped him skin it out. because I've skinned a lot of animals. And yeah, he took it and made pepperoni out of it. But that was right in the middle of the bear attack on the movie.
Oh, he was all wound up, eh?
He wound up. So then I watched it, and that thing was so fake, I just laughed. It didn't do nothing for me.
Well,
But
I thought they
scared
did
me
a pretty
more
good job.
playing Dangerous Hunts, I think it was on, like Cabela's, on... fuck. I'm not very good at video games.
Oh, it's a video game.
Yeah, it was on your Wii.
Oh, yeah.
I got Dangerous Hunts for Christmas. And that damn bear coming over top of the frickin' rock. Now, that scared the shit out of me.
Was it the graphics or was it the way
The graphics is better. The bear on... You watch the movie, and that bear is coming over top like this with his mouth. It ain't even getting at him. That head's got to turn.
Oh.
The head's got to drop down. Like, I can tell you what that looks like. You know.
Well, you want to watch that? It's a 3-minute clip, and then we can... or
Sure.
Yeah? Because I think it puts that... I thought they did a pretty good job.
I thought they did a piss poor job of it. I'll show you.
Sure.
Yeah, it happens just that fast. It didn't worry me, just the way it moves, like its head and that. Yeah.
Man.
He never got a hold of my head.
So he's playing dead here.
Yep.
He's trying to do the theory about playing dead.
Yeah. The grizzly bear doesn't worry about you as much because he...
Oh, stepping on his head like that.
Yeah.
Man.
He's going to bury you and eat you later. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
A black bear will eat you right now.
Oh,
because
really?
they have animals above them coming to get the meat, right? Like there's a grizzly bear that's going to take it from them.
Yeah.
So they'll eat you. That's why that woman last year got... Like that black bear was hungry. We had no berries.
You're talking about the two women that were down in Dawson Creek?
That bear was hungry, and it was a black bear, so it's eating her. It was eating her hip.
She was right then and there.
Oh, yeah, the kid was
Eaten
punching
alive.
it and trying to drag it off, and it was eating her.
Man!
Yeah,
I can't even imagine.
She worked with my wife.
Really?
At Association for Community Living, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if she's working yet. The other woman is. But her hip is ripped, like, it was eating her.
Man.
But a grizzly bear will let him kind of die and then bury him.
Save him for later.
Oh, yeah.
Let him rot a bit, try and
yeah.
save him up.
Tastes better, right?
Yeah. Well, they
It's
do
like
like
us
rotten
hanging a
meat.
moose, you know?
That's right. Well, on this show, like the first part of it, though, you did mention there, I don't know if I was able to pick it up, but the way, how fast it charged, like
Yeah.
he hardly had time to turn
exactly
around.
the same thing with me.
And so it just was pretty much in a full run and took you right out.
Come down the hill from where we had shot the elk the night before and gutted it.
So it was the scent that it was coming for.
Yep. I heard it up top, and I asked Dad if he'd heard it, and he said no, and my dad couldn't hear a freight train. So so then we just went
Well,
about
how old's
it.
your dad?
What's that?
How old's your dad?
My dad's dead.
Sorry, I mean at that time, how old was he?
It was 2004. He died at 73 year before last, so
So he's in his 60s.
60s, yeah.
Oh, wow.
But working oil patch, same as me, right? Yeah. It wrecks your hearing after a while.
Huh. Well, so this thing, it caught a scent upwind and came down with the two cubs.
No, right where we... If you... those pictures... you look on the pictures, you can see that there's a trail going.
Here, I'll just get
right
rid of this
past,
this video we were watching here.
I don't like that actor. He's piss poor.
Oh, okay.
And then now he's trying to save everything, right? I mean, I don't want to see all the grizzly bears gone, but they should be a little bit scared of us. That plane landed on an airstrip we built.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why that's there. That's for a little bit. It's part of the story, but it's later on. That happened before. I wanted to show that.
So which picture would you like to see here? Because
Can
you
you
sent,
go through them? There's 6 of them. Yeah.
there's
We
6
had
of them.
wolves in that camp. That's why I wanted to put the camp.
Nice. Yeah, it's pretty cool having that. It's a wall tent.
Yeah, that's my wall tent. There's the sheep I shot. I shot the sheep from the horses. Laid down at the horses. Walked right up. The sheep's walking down, and shot the sheep and walked up.
This is above alpine. So you do a lot of hunting, eh?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Here's a noose.
There's a moose we shot
a moose
a little bit after that, and we lost it to a grizzly bear the year before. This is the year before we got chewed up.
Oh, really? So
That's my father
03?
there. Is that? Yeah, that's 03. Yeah. Those antlers were on my shed. There's the elk. See, now there's a trail right there. So that elk was laying on the trail, the gut pile.
Oh, yeah.
And then we dragged it from the antlers down the hill to where the horses were. It was really steep, so you didn't want to take the horses up there. So she was up top eating on the elk.
And this is the elk that you're skinning out when.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So this was the day before, you said?
Yeah, the
when
night
you
before.
shot it, and then you went back the next day.
And then yeah.
Oh yeah. And this is.
And that's 2 years later. Jimmy went back and found everything. It was laying there. So then we went and.
So this is your camp then?
No, that's where the bearattack was.
Oh, okay.
I was actually on the other side of the spruce tree.
Off to the left here?
Yeah, over to the left is where it all happened. He just happened to, that stuff was all sitting there. That's the antlers. You can see there's nothing left of them from the other picture because porcupines eat them, eh?
Porcupines are meat
Very
eaters?
seldom do you find deer antlers or like elk.
Yeah.
Because the porcupines will eat them up. Moose are a lot bigger, but you'll see a moose antlers round or chewed up, and that's porcupines.
I know they get into a facility. They love
OSB?
wiring.
Love OSB.
Yeah. Vehicles.
Yeah.
We've had, Jody went up to Windfall Lake and came back after, I think it was 1 or 2 nights. A porcupine chewed the wire harness in her pickup.
I got a good
to go on a rescue mission.
Yeah.
So this is the first picture I guess we should have started with then, eh? This is the scene, I guess.
Yeah, afterwards, yeah.
And you never really had any issues with getting right back out into the outdoors?
I had trouble fixing fence later that year. I hear a stick cracked and made it back to the house pretty quick.
Yeah. A little jumpy.
A little bit, yeah.
So, okay, walk me through what happened here, because before we started recording, you had mentioned a couple little interesting things there I didn't know about, as far as you didn't bleed out because cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
So
I thought I would kind of start as a kid because
sure,
we've had lots of bear attacks, lots of bear encounters. It wasn't just that. Isn't the only one.
Well, I'll let you kick it off.
Not the first one.
Start out as a kid. So you're born in this area?
No, yeah. So my parents had met down in Vancouver. My mom lived in Vancouver. My dad was a logger on the coast, Vancouver Island. And Dad always had a dream of ranching. So he sold his 73 Ford baby blue Mustang for a 3-ton truck, old 3-ton truck, 60-something truck, red and yellow, and moved up here. And then I think I was conceived, if that's the right word, in Horsefly Lake. They were camping there.
In Horsefly Lake?
Horsefly, yeah.
I know where that is.
They were camping, Horsefly Lake, by themselves. So then they moved to Charlie Lake, and they were renting a place on the old Hudson Hope Road. They rent a little place there with my brother Fred, and then Rhonda was a girl, right, at the time. They're both older than me. And then Dad was logging, falling. I'm not sure if it was for marshals at that time or if it was for somebody else. And he fell a tree, a big spruce tree, and the branch was behind him. And the branch, when the tree come over, the branch come out of the snow, hit him in the back of the head, and drove his face into the butt as the butt come up.
Oh, wow.
Knocked his front teeth out. So my mom is 8 months pregnant for me, and she come to the door for Dad, and Dad was covered in blood all over his Stanfield wool long johns, and his face and his front teeth are smashed out, and a big smile.
Oh, wow.
She screamed, and they
I can imagine.
they think that is when I had a stroke.
Oh, really?
Yes, that's why you should never. I always tell anybody that I know that are having a baby, do not scare your wife. Don't scare your girlfriend thinking it's funny when she's pregnant, because that could happen. Or, as I was being born, April 21st, 1976, I was born, and I could have been coming out too fast and had the stroke then.
Oh, okay. So let me read what cerebral palsy actually is for those who aren't familiar with it. Just a quick overview. Cerebral palsy is a group of conditions that affect movement and posture. It's caused by damage that occurs to the developing brain, most often before birth. Symptoms appear during infancy or preschool years and vary from mild to serious. With children with cerebral palsy may have exaggerated reflexes. That didn't really seem to read out too smooth. But basically, it's a stroke at birth.
Yeah.
Either during labor or slightly after. Yeah. Okay. And it affects your ability to move?
My whole right side, my right eye, right arm, right leg. Yeah.
Wow.
My heel cord was tight. I was 24. We had moved, so I was born April 21st, 76. May of that year, we bought a place in Buick, a half section of land. And there was a little cabin on there, and another building moved onto it, which actually was funny because back in the 60s, it was a restaurant in Buick, and they sold beans and hamburger patties out of that. And then we ended up living in it when they'd put it together. Jim Pugh had put it all together, and then he sold it to us.
Oh, yeah.
So we lived in we had a little camper that Dad had, like a little trailer, and it was so small that Mom just opened the bottom drawer of the dresser, and that's where I slept because there was no room for a.
I've actually heard of that happening a few times. You just put
no room for a crib, right? So you slept in the dresser drawer.
That's nice little convenient pre-built.
I guess you make too much noise, you just kick it shut, eh?
I guess you could. That would be a way of doing it, wouldn't it?
So I was 24 months and still in my walker, like a baby walker we used to have. You can't have them anymore because, they outlawed them because you could go down a set of stairs or whatever, I suppose. So anyways, I was still on my toe. My toe was my right foot. I wasn't putting my heel down.
Oh, okay.
So then they figured, well, we got to do something about that. So then I went to the Vancouver Children's Hospital and had surgery done, and extended my heel cords, right, in my right foot, and then made it so I could walk after the cast had come off. And then grew up and got where I could walk, but I tell you, I have fallen down. I was going to write a book, 1,000 Ways to Fall.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I have fallen a lot over the years because that right foot will go behind the left, and I don't care who you are, you're falling down.
Yeah, no kidding. You're tripping yourself.
Oh, yeah.
So the Achilles heel was lengthened.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Stretched that out. And then wore a brace, like just the knee, kind of like, Forrest Gump wore. His was all the way up. Okay. Mine was the knee. So it squeaked lots so you could hear me coming. A little bit of oil in it or whatever, right? Had to oil the hinge all the time. Yeah. So we grew up there. Lots of bears come into the yard, black bears. There was only ever 2 grizzly bears killed in Buick. One of our neighbors shot one, I think back in the early 70s. And then Lillico's had a grizzly come in into their buffalo corrals and killed a bunch of pigs. There's video and stuff on YouTube
so
on that.
So when you're talking bears, you're talking grizzly bear?
Black bear. Oh. There was only 2 grizzly ever kind of shot in Buick. Now there's piles of them. Ranchers are having trouble with them. They've moved right in.
Well, because there's a ban on shooting them.
Exactly.
You can't hunt them.
That's the craziest thing about it all.
It is.
Yeah. The year that they put the ban on, there was 130 problem bears put down.
Oh, wow.
Because there's that many. So anyways, my dad, he'd be out hunting, like out fixing fence, and we had a German Shepherd dog. And that dang dog would go wrestle up a bear and bring it to Dad to shoot, right?
Really?
Come running right down the cut line or whatever Dad was.
Your dogs would go out and hunt bears?
The German Shepherd my dad had, yeah.
Wow.
Would go get this damn bear and then bring it to Dad, and Dad's got to put the hammer down and shoot the bear before it,
That's a good dog.
Well, I don't know if Dad thought so, but it kept the freezer full.
Absolutely.
Smoked hams, right? Smoked bear hams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, we weren't very rich at the time, so I mean, you ate whatever you come at.
So you grew
right?
up on a ranch pretty much your whole life?
Yeah, grew up in Buick. We had a section of land, and then we rented another section, and then leased some more.
I seen a cool little video you had on your
The end of the
Facebook
168 road is where we were at. So you turn at the store, like at the four-way.
page. Yeah.
The old store was to the right-hand side, so you'd go past that, past the school. Have you ever been out to Buick?
Yeah, I've been all over.
So
every
you go
inch of
past
this
the
area,
school,
pretty much.
and then the first left past the school, up there 7 miles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right at the end. So that right at the end of any farming.
Yeah.
So that's why the bears kept coming in.
Oh, just on the outer edge of where people live.
Yeah. So my dad, so I mean, we had trouble with black bears and stuff. Northeast News wrote an article and said that we were inexperienced is why it all happened. No. We've been around them our whole damn lives. My
Isn't that crazy how people just make that, where did that comment and that impression come from?
The guys that come and picked us up, supposedly they never bothered to come in and talk to us at all. They went and talked to the 14 Drawn Ambulance Service, and the 14 Drawn Ambulance Service said we had no experience.
Just people talking out the side of their head?
Talking the side of their head. Yeah. Huh. So I single-footed up there. It's a saying from George McGarvey, you walk fast. Made it into the Northeast News and give them an ash chewing as soon as I got out of the hospital.
Did he?
That was the first place I went. Well, then they wanted me to tell them a story, and I told them, no, you ain't getting shit.
Did they issue a correction on that news article?
No, I wouldn't give them one. You
just weren't happy with how
everybody else had said it the way it was, more or less. They didn't bother to say anything about having trouble with bears. They just said we got attacked, but I mean, the story was right. But they never accused us of not having any experience.
The thing with bears, and especially in this area, though, you pretty much are guaranteed to have an encounter at a very short period of time being out in the bush.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how common it is to run into bear.
Yeah.
You see bear sketches about anywhere you go when you're quadding or walking. My
grandfather had gone for a walk when I was little. They lived a half mile behind our place. They moved up from, they retired and moved up from Port Alberni. My grandfather actually ran the highway in the 50s for the Canadian Army from Montreal Lake to Dawson Creek. So
to touch on the inexperience a little bit, because that's a weird comment to make. What really was done that was on the side of inexperience versus someone who has experience? What is the difference between the two? And because a bear encounter has got, a bear encounter basically is a bear encounter. It has nothing to do with whether or not you're
inexperienced. You never would have made it where we were at.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 3 days horseback, you know what I mean?
Well, said there was 5-hour horseback to the nearest trapping.
Back to the old Lynn Ross horse camp.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no outfitter there or nothing.
This isn't just a walking trail, public walking trail.
No. That's
the weirdest comment to make.
The main trail going down the main valley, like the halfway, you can go down there in you can go down quite a ways with your John Deere Gator.
Oh, okay.
They made a road all the way to Rov Lake Airstrip, so they could haul out core and mining core in the 80s.
But at that time, it was only accessible by horseback?
No, this trail is there. It's the side valleys that are horseback.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So to go back to cerebral palsy and the fact that when that bear had bit you on your thigh and you didn't bleed out, what did the cerebral palsy condition have that
no feeling in my right leg and poor circulation.
Oh, okay. So the poor circulation part was what stopped you from
bleeding out.
And how long did that mulling go for?
20 minutes probably. Felt like an hour.
Man, so it must be hard to, in a moment like that, and this is what I was trying to capture, I guess, with that video that buddy was in, I won't mention his name, was I think just some of the elements that you don't think about when you're in the moment. And a few of them would be the speed at which a bear can pretty much be right on top of you. Yep. And the other part is the mauling part, like that constant biting in different places and pulling and scratching at you. How do you keep a composure? Like, I mean, that is something that would debilitate your ability to be able to think proper, it's quite an...
You knew you had to get the gun.
Yeah.
But I've dealt with pain a lot, right? Like horseback riding, getting bucked off, get back on. Horses slide down the side of a mountain or whatever. You get to the bottom, get back on, right? You know how to deal with it. I've been in pain my whole life. Like I'll tell you if you want, growing up, right? So they worked on that. They worked on my leg, right? And I had different people at school, different women, a couple of... Bonnie Wallen, she did a lot, stretching my ankle cord all the time. When I was young, I was too light. I couldn't keep my ankle cord stretched. So then there was different student helpers and stuff that would help. They had different exercises I had to do and stuff and different things. So parts of the day. And I couldn't talk very well. I thought my mom said, a mile a minute, going all the time, right? Because it worked better than my legs. But I learned to ride good. Yeah. Pretty young, I had a pony, used to ride him. That bugger bucked me off any direction you think of. The worst thing he ever did is we were chasing cows, and he backed up underneath the loafing shed, and he was trying to crush me because he knew he could make it under this 2x8 that was on the side of this loafing shed, and I couldn't. And he started backing up, and I'm getting crushed and screaming and kicking. And my cousin got a hold of a board, and he started beating on this horse's ass, trying to get him to go forward. And my dad got him, finally got him out of there. But, the pony taught me to ride, that's for sure.
Yeah, was it wild or what?
No, just a mean, miserable. I wouldn't buy a pony for anybody unless you didn't like them very much. They're a terrible animal. But he taught you to ride, right? So I grew up, we rode lots, chasing cows and stuff. My brothers bought a 125 Yamaha bike, dirt bike. And we rode down to Snyder Creek. It's deactivated, that road, but I don't think you had ever been down there. But if you turned at our place and then you went over to the right and then you go down there anyways in an old bridge. And we were down there throwing rocks in the river and stuff. And brother's excited about his dirt bike. And pretty quick, big black bear comes out on the road. And Fred's like, oh, shit, we got to get home. So we're just kids, right? So gets it up and tries to get it start. No way it would start. So he decided he'd bomb start it. So he throws me on there, and he's going to push it. He wants me to put it in first gear. And I somehow skipped first and second and put it in third. And Fred had to flip it up on top of us to get it, shut it off. And the bear decided he'd bugger off. And, so anyways, we grew up around them all the time, and you get pretty used to being around them.
You're talking about the bike now or the bear?
No, the bears. Like the bears always come around.
The bike. You're talking about riding a bike and then something about a bear. Was
the 125. Yeah, the bike. The bear come out, and then Fred and I figured we better get home and get away from this bear, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
so you came around a corner? And...
No, he just come up on the road by the bridge where we were sitting throwing rocks in the creek.
Oh, so you stopped your bike and you stopped for a break, and then a bear came out.
Yeah, we stopped the bike and we were sitting there.
Oh, okay.
Relaxing, and the bear come out.
It's crazy. So the part of the bike where you put the bike on top of you as a barrier for the...
we were going to get it started, like I said.
Yeah.
Fred put me in front of one. He was going to push it. Bomb start it.
Oh,
we couldn't get it to start.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this was as the bear was coming at you?
As the bear's coming at us.
Holy man.
Trying to get this bike started. So then... Like I said, he wanted me to kick it in the first gear, right? Pop it in the first gear, and then we'd take off. He'd jump on the back, and away we'd go. Well, I skipped first and second, got it into third somehow, and he had to flip it. He flipped it up on top of us to stop. Like, he had to grab it and knock it down to stop it from running over top, from taking off with me on it by myself, right?
Oh, I see. Well, normally if you go up a few gears like that, it would just bog out.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a...
But anyways, okay, fair enough.
That's what happened. I mean, it was,
crazy.
So growing up then, we played hockey, Bjork, right? Everything. And the kids let me play. I played for a couple more years longer than anybody else because as I got older, I couldn't, like I wasn't fast like everybody else, right? And I couldn't stick handle. I did fairly well, but I wasn't great enough. And I was just told I wasn't, allowed to use. I was no bigger than anybody else. Like I'm 5'7" now. So, I mean, it was great to have the community like that, right? And they all stood behind you and they treated me like anybody else. If I had gone to town school, I probably would never have done what I did.
Yeah.
And then grew up and doing different things, right? And went to high school and met George McGarvey and Ray Pitts at the Saddle Shop by the Lido Theatre. I don't know if you've ever been in there.
A long time ago.
Yeah,
Are they even open still?
No. Ray died, and so did George.
Yeah, wasn't it boot repair too?
Yeah, that was brass tack, shoe, and saddle repair.
Yeah, that's
so I was in there in high school, grade 12. I went in, and I heard nothing but hunting stories and stuff, and how to do everything, and packing horses and stuff. Like Ray Pitts was a great packer, hunter. He guided for years, had a hunting area of his own, Jojo Lake up in the Yukon.
Yeah.
George McGarvey helped survey all the North Country with McCusker. Him and McCusker actually surveyed, like where they went up on, like a Pink Mountain.
Yeah.
McCusker and George had surveyed a route over from there instead of going up on top of the mountain like they did. He said, stay down below. There's only 200-foot spans we'd have to cross, build bridges, and then we could just stay down below. And no, they wanted to go up on top of the mountain because they got tired of the muskeg. And George said that was a big mistake, that they had surveyed it all and everything.
Oh, really?
And then...
so the survey, he was with a mapping company?
Yeah, McCusker was the head of it. Yeah, and they did... They used to use dog sled, and then they got rid of the dog sleds, and they used power toboggans, like a skidoo, which was a power toboggan at that time. And he surveyed for years. I heard lots of stories. Like, I mean,
unreal.
I lived with George for 2 years. I rented a room off of him, which I'll never. That was some of the best times of my life, listening to the stories, the hunting stories. I mean, and that gets you ready for everything that I did the rest of my life, right? Hearing the stories, and yeah, we always figured if we were the same age, we would have covered a lot of country.
Just exploring.
Just exploring. He loved it. He hunted. I think he killed over 125 black bears and 24 grizzly in his lifetime.
Wow. Yeah. Just because of was he trapping, or was that just part of?
No, he trapped. He trapped. Like where that there's a picture of that plane.
Yeah. I can
where
bring
that plane was, that meadow. He trapped there for 10 years.
There you go.
Yeah, in that same meadow. And then this is years later. I worked for John Robidoux, and we built that airstrip with a team of horses and a drag. And then that plane landed, and John said, how is it? He says, well, it's pretty bad. I said, well, how bad? He said, well, it's the worst fucking airstrip I ever landed on. You take out a few more trees over there, get the team again. And we dragged it a bunch more times, and he landed and hauled out the hunters and stuff out of there. But it was on Snake Creek. So Dad and I, we trailed in with John Robidoux and built a camp, but it was 18 hours horseback to this camp, but only 2 hours from that strip. But George had trapped beaver and stuff in that area years ago, like back in the 50s, and actually lived in a hole in the ground that he had built. It was an old... fallen tree, right? And it stuck in another one. So he used a bunch of logs and built that up and put dirt on top of it. And he spent 4 or 5 years living in that.
Really?
By that same valley. I looked, for something like a pile of dirt or something. But there actually was a plane crash there. I don't know when. George told me about it. The guy crashed a plane in that meadow, and then he built a raft, and Snake Creek is just kind of behind where the plane is, and he rafted. But there's a canyon in the Dunedin River, and he died in that Dunedin River.
What do you mean he died? How did he die?
The canyon, the rapids in the canyon, nobody ever seen him. They think that's
really?
where the guy died, was going down the rapids.
Took him out.
Yeah. So my dad...
So he was on his own?
Yeah, this guy was on his own. I don't know. George just told me the story. I don't know if there was more people and just one guy lived. So we built a camp there, and then my dad and I we went out one day exploring after the camp was built, put up wall tents and stuff, right, and cut firewood and got things ready for everybody, and him and I go exploring, and we're riding along Snake Creek and come to this corner, and Dad had to get off the horse, take a leak. And we were born with small bladders, so we piss everywhere. So he's off taking a leak, and I climbed off the horse to stretch, and this cow moose comes at us, like right in, like from me to you away. This cow moose is running at us with the ears flat on the back of her head, and a calf right behind her, and a great big sow grizzly bear right on the ass end of this calf, pawing this calf in the back, trying to knock the calf down.
Wow.
Right in front of her. Like, we're getting wet from the water hitting us. We're so close. Right on the edge of the river. And so the cow takes off past us. The the calf past us, and the sow grizzly, big sow. And this dang cub comes out following everybody. And he's sitting on the other side of the river from us, crying like a baby, upset because his mom had left him and got these two cowboys standing there staring at him and a couple of horses. And he's crying and crying and crying. And so we thought, well, shit, we get out of here, right? So we got back on the horses, and we crossed the river 3 or 4 times. No, Snake Creek, goes to the Dunedin. And we crossed a few times. And then that sow grizzly comes down the trail, and then we see her from across the river, and that's kind of how things always used to be. Is she stood up on her back legs, she gave us a couple of paws in the air, she turned around, took her baby, and left, right?
What do you mean took a couple paws and
like she just pawed at us like this, and
just letting you know.
You stay in your area, I'll stay in mine, and she took her baby and left.
Wow.
And that's how grizzlies used to be. They stayed in their area and people stayed in theirs, but now there's getting to be such an overpopulation of them that everybody's together, right? Like
And then there's obviously human pressures, right, through industry, trapping or whatever. So, go ahead. My
dad had a hunter down in Mill Creek cabin. I think it was Mill Creek. No, it was another cabin further in Hole in the Wall. No, it wasn't Hole in the Wall. It was another cabin further back with this hunter and these 2 juvenile 3-year-old grizzlies. Dad and the hunter come into camp. He just brought them there. They're there only a couple of hours, and Dad looked up on the hill, and a couple of tops of grizzly bears looking down at him. Mm-hmm. You could see the ears. And they come whipping down that hill to attack, and as they're running at him, Dad shot the one bear, and...
wow. How far away was that?
And then the other one took... What's that?
How far a shot was that?
20 yards.
Jeez.
Like it coming right down. Right? My dad was a good shot with a little 444 Marlin rifle. I have it at home. He shot a moose when we were kids outside the 150 yards across the field at a run. This cow moose is running. It was cow moose season. And Dad just jumped up on the side of the cat, used it as a rest, and boom, with open sights.
Wow.
Shot and killed the moose, one shot. My dad was a hell of a shot with that rifle. He fed us our entire childhood with that 444. So, yeah, I mean, we've been around bears a lot.
You mentioned Hole in the Wall. Are you talking about Sekunka?
No. This is just a hunting camp, like outfitters. They call their camps different.
Yeah, well, there's a hole in the wall down that area that I thought you were referencing.
North of Fort Nelson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Along this, yeah. The hunting area that we worked in that year was north of the highway. So you got Tetsa River south of the highway, Tetsa River Services.
Yeah.
Cliff Andrews sold this area to John Robidoux. I worked for Cliff Andrews a few years earlier than that. And I knew Abigail, the girl that went missing here 18 years ago.
Went missing?
She went missing she was leaving going to the home from the hotel, from the bar that she worked at. She was a waitress.
Oh, so this is in town. She's been missing,
like Abigail Andrews.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I don't know that story. Okay. I thought maybe it was in the bush or something.
No. I worked for them outfit. And
you're talking Fort St. John?
Tetsa River Outfitters.
Okay.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. No. So she went missing from town.
Fort St. John when she was older. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Jeez, and never found her.
No, they haven't found her today. No. But I worked for their family guiding. Yeah, it was pretty cool working for them, and then we just hunted and stuff with them, and then on the north side I worked there as well, and that's where we had that one bear encounter. And then we both quit guiding, and we hunted for ourselves, my dad and I. And in 2003, we went in on the south side of the highway, same area, to cross Tetsa River, and then up towards, heading towards Shoutout.
Okay.
And we stayed at the one tent that was there with that horse in the front of it. And we're staying there, hunting out of there, and I'm having a dang dream of werewolves chasing me, like like that werewolves in London kind of a thing. And shit, I wake up and there's wolves all around us, and our horses had backed. They were just hobbled, and they backed themselves up against the side of the tent, hoping we were going to wake up, I guess, and give them a hand. We come out of the tent, and the wolves are running around that tent, just around the tent, and scared the horses. And then we shot at them a couple times. I mean, it was in the dark. You couldn't really get a decent shot at nothing. They took off over, and I understand the guide from Waynes's area said that they had went and killed I think they killed they attacked, and whether they killed a mare and a foal at the end of their airstrip at that other camp that was close to where we were staying. The wolves that actually killed a horse there. And then we come out, and we were just south of what they call Kerrim Lake. I'm not sure if there was a picture there or not. And we went.
I've got the only photos I have are 6 that you sent me.
The one that, yeah. So and then my dad, the one with the moose. Yeah, there.
Okay.
So the mooses, we shot that moose. We were hunting at south of Kerrim Lake, stayed there, and then this is just over from Kerrim Lake. We just kind of sat there and bullshitting, the hunting trip was over, and we were going to go home kind of the next day, and we kept moose calling, and that big old bull come running along, so Dad shot him again with his .444 and dropped the moose, and we gutted it and everything, and then we left it because it got late in the afternoon, and then in the morning we were going to go pick it up. So we go back to camp, and there was another couple of guys that had stayed in the same camp as us. We just stayed in the same camp. We'd met earlier, and they had brought these antlers in that they had shot a moose the same day, and they just brought the antlers. They just sit. You can grab the antlers and put them on one guy can hand them to the other guy, and you ride with these antlers in your lap, hoping that the horse never bucks you off, because you could die. No kidding. You could die with an antler stuck in you. Yeah. But they brought them in, and they had them in front of their tent. And we're laying, we go to bed, everybody, and laying in bed, and pretty quick I can hear this frickin' noise, and it sounds like a cat in heat, like a female cat. I don't know if you've ever heard one. Yeah. They make a hell of a pile of noise, meowing and carrying on, and we're laying in bed, and I'm like, what the hell is that noise? And Dad says, I think it's a damn grizzly bear.
No.
So we come out the front of the tent, and a big old boar grizzly sitting there, and
was it a grizz?
Yeah.
They make that noise?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's making a hell of a pile of noise.
Man.
Yeah, just grunting and moaning and carrying on. And then he's sitting in front of the tent looking at us, kind of thing. And Dad kind of yelled at it, wore hoops at it a couple of times, and he had his gun pointed at it, and it took off down to the creek. So we get up in the morning and saddle the horses and the pack horses, and we're going to head over and grab that moose and then come back, pack up camp. And if we get done early enough, we were just going to leave. We'd had enough of this wolves and grizzly bears for one season. And we go down to the creek, and the damn the bear had been down there. And this one red horse that I borrowed from my hunting buddy, Jimmy Muscle, it smelt the damn bear, I guess, and it starts bucking, and it's bucking, and it's not moving anywhere, just straight up and down. And this horse is bucking like a bugger, trying to get rid of this bear. It thinks it's on its back, because the boxes are on its back. And Dad and I and the horses are looking at it, and we're like, well, what the heck's with you, It never even tightened the lead rope up. He just stood still, one spot, just bucking for like 2 or 3 seconds. He just giving her all it was worth, well, shit. So we head down the trail back to where the moose was.
So is that that kind of behavior from a horse? Like, what was going on with that?
I thought he smelt the bear, the grizzly bear, right? Because it left our camp, went down to the creek.
You would think that it would just bolt, eh? A bear.
It was weird. Like, it just stood there bucking. Like, yeah. Thought the damn bear was on his back, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Dad and I looking at it, and the other horses are like, what the heck's wrong with you, kind of thing. And then went down the trail back south of there to where the moose was. We get to the dang moose, and the boar grizzly, we followed it all the way ahead of us. It walked all the way ahead of us, and it got to the moose and buried it. And which happens quite often, right?
Yeah, like you're saying, just tries to save it for later.
Yeah. No, he buried the moose, so we grabbed our antler. We kind of went in there, and the bear, I don't know if he was laying in the bush. He could have been anywhere behind it.
So is that the picture of the moose it buried?
Yep, that moose is the one that buried.
For, like, how heavy is that moose?
It'd be 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, at least.
We quartered it and everything right in the gut pile, but he dragged everything up into a pile and buried it.
Huh,
yeah, they grabbed all the quarters, because we dragged the quarters away. Oh, power like you wouldn't believe. So we grabbed the antlers, loaded them on the horse there on my tack shed at home, those antlers, and we got the camp unpacked, packed up, and where the heck are they? Let's go. We're done shooting bears in here. There's a lot of bears in that area, and they've gotten so used to humans that the moment you shoot now,
they come after you.
They come at you. I seen Doug Covitt a few years after that, after we got chewed up. So the next year, so a few years after 2004, I seen him, and he said it's no longer if it ever happens.
It's when.
It's when.
Absolutely.
And there was pictures of them where they used to take bear hunts all the time in the Tetsa River, him and Cliff. Lots of pictures and photo albums of all the bears. And big Doug Andrews, a big man, he's holding these bears up, and stuff. And so, I mean, he's been around bears too, and he just said it's just because they've gotten to be so many, and they're not scared anymore. As soon as you shoot, they come.
Well, there's no predator.
Exactly.
Like, there's zero on planet Earth. Like, they're just going to multiply until they get to...
It's like a polar bear, right? Polar bears aren't scared of anybody. They hunt you.
Well, actually, polar bears are scarier, in my opinion, than grizzlies. Those things terrify the hell out of me. I'm glad I've never seen a polar bear, to be quite honest with you. Yeah. But there's no natural predators, so these things are going to get out of hand to a point of where you're going to have to reinstate. It's weird how they put... What triggered to protect a grizzly bear? Do you know what that was? Where did that start from?
They just thought they were just like the wolves. The wolves are such nice majestic animals. We got to move them from this area, like Fort Nelson, right, and take them to Yellowstone, And then the ranchers, the one hunter I had when I worked, another year I worked for another outfitter, and the one hunter, he had a ranch in Montana on the Yellowstone, and every time you seen a wolf, after his cows, he's seen a biologist following. They were always driving around their pickups and stuff. They had the wolves collared, so they'd tracking them all the time, and you couldn't shoot them. But the dang wolves are killing his calves and killing his cows, and it made a heck of a deal. But if they're kind of scared of you, they aren't gonna attack you. So anyhow, we get out of there that year, and then we go back home, and Dad goes back to Prince George where he was living. Dad had a trap line on the Nelson River, between the Nelson River and the Dunedin River. Dad owned a trap line, 700 square miles. Wow. He had bought that. He retired from the oil patch, and he went trapping. So we built a cabin in there. We spent a month and a half, built a cabin, like a log cabin, 16 by 12. People nowadays, they count a cabin as a 10-bedroom, and a TV and stuff. But my dad's idea of a cabin is a room.
I was just talking to someone who's saying they have a cabin, but it's in a gated community and like the whole 9 yards. I'm like, that's not a cabin. Come on.
No. And Bill Clausen built a cabin. Dale and Bill built one. If you look on the south side of like in Taylor when you're going through, and the towers, if you look over from there, you can see it. And they go, oh, let's go to the cabin. Okay, sure, I'll go to the cabin. And I figured it'd be like one of my dad's cabins or one of my idea of a cabin. It's a 20 by 30 and got a wood stove in the outhouse, and more like having a craft in a sauna. But anyhow, that's not really my idea of a... but I mean, it's way bigger cabin, and my boss, he's got a cabin now, on Powder King, and they can sleep 15 people in there, yeah. So we Dad goes, and he finds this cabin that winter on the trap line that he knew where it was. And the old trapper had built it. The old guy that trapped that country, he died in his late 80s and trapped in there until then. And there was a couple old spoons.
Don't build them like that anymore.
From the 1800s, I think 1870s. Dad showed them to me, like actual silver spoons.
Yeah.
And the tips of the spoon was wore out from all the years, stirring soup and eating with them, right? And Dad had them. And he's in that cabin, finds his cabin, and he could see a grizzly bear had made because the door got kicked in, and the bear had made a den out of it over in the corner. So my dad kicked out the bear's den and cleaned it all up, and he's going to live in it for the winter and for a while and trap out of there. They were doing a bunch of logging there. The cabin had sunk into the ground enough that Dad said his dang back would get sore from walking bent over inside the cabin. And it'd take you 2 minutes to straighten out when you got out, And then later on that fall, he got moved in and stuff, and you get winter time starting. And he hears something outside, and the grizzly bear's looking at him through the window, wanting to know when he's going to move out so he can move back in. So him and the bear, they had a few standoffs inside and outside the cabin. And,
oh, wow.
And then the bear left and went and found a den, and he's probably moved back in now because Dad sold that trap line a few years later.
So when you said the cabin sunk, that was just the walls and then it was a dirt floor?
Yeah,
so the
dirt floors,
interior stayed the same level?
And then the logs sunk into the ground. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, the grizzly bear there in the fall. And then, so then the next year we made a plan. We're going to go with Jimmy Muscle and his uncle, Kevin Muscle, and go hunting back in the halfway again. Jimmy and I spent quite a few years in the halfway hunting, and even did after I got attacked. And so we went back in there, and then we go up into where we hunt sheep, and we'd seen quite a few sheep in there over the years. But every year it got to be less and less as the bears aren't allowed to be hunted by the... No, at that time I think we could still... No, we couldn't hunt bears anymore. You get limited entry. And
at that time, it was
just limited entry. Yeah, we could still get, because Jimmy ends up shooting a bear the next spring in there, so you get limited in. So we go in and go to what we call sheep camp, and we see these rams going up over the mountain, and Kevin takes off on foot after the rams, and we ride around the side of the mountain and look up, and holy smokes, there's a ram, and look at him, and he's legal. If you go to that picture, it's the one where I got the ram. So we stopped and glassed him, and yeah, he's legal. So then I laid down where that black spot is in my backpack, and I up and shoot my first ram. I hunted rams and guided to them, but I never got one of my own. So up and shot him and dragged him down to the horses and took him. Just packed all the meat out in our backpacks, and then I just rode with the horns in my lap, and my cape hanging over my leg, and we got back to camp. And later on that night, we're sitting around having a whiskey, thinking about the bears, and thinking about shooting sheep. And a grizzly comes in the camp, but they're not used to humans, right? He might have smelt the sheep or whatever. And he kind of comes in behind the tent, and he gives us a grunt and takes off, and that's the last we ever seen him. That's normally how they behave, is by that, right? They would just go, oh, there's humans, we better get out of here. Yeah. So he left, and that was the end of that problem. And then, so then we head on our way out, and we go to what we call Canyon Camp, which is a halfway river. There's a canyon in there, and you go up over the canyon, and then you can get to Robb Lake after that. A few hours after is Robb Lake. And so we go up and around a long mountain and hunted there for a bit, and then we come back through, and then we're heading towards, we'd called some elk all day with an elk bugle and cow call, right? And you're calling and stuff, and they're answering us and stuff. We're having a pretty good time. And then we get to along the edge of the bank where we'd shot that elk. We seen this elk walking along, and Dad up, and we call it a couple of times or whatever, and it moves a little bit closer to us, and then Dad shoots it. And then we go over and we gutted it and put a stick in its rib cage to hold it open, and it's getting dark. You can see the picture of us with the elk. the black.
Is that you sent that too? That one there?
Yep.
This one. Where is that?
Right there.
Oh, okay.
So we shot that elk right there, right? And then we gutted it and everything, and then opened it up. And then Jimmy and Kevin, they come with us that morning to where the elk is, and we come around the long way. And they said, if we don't come back, follow us. Don't go back the other way, because that's quite a ways around, and you got to cross the halfway and stuff. So, okay, sure. So we would do that. So we grabbed the elk by the antlers and dragged it down that hill. That hill is really steep. Like you could walk a horse up there, but you're standing on a bank. The bank keeps going behind us even. And so we dragged it down to the bottom, the little flat where you see where the stuff's all scattered, that other picture. So just ahead of that, so that trail is just ahead. You can see that trail ahead of us.
Yep.
So we dragged it down the hill, down the trail, and kind of where that black stump is.
That last picture that you were looking at is at the top of this picture? Looking down?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Okay.
Yep. We just dragged that elk down that hill. You can see the little trail.
Yeah.
And
in through here.
And then the boxes were kind of where that one far box is. We leaned our rifles against that black stump you see there.
Right here, yeah.
Yeah. And the horses were behind towards where we're sitting.
Okay.
About this, a little bit more than that distance, but there was some big spruce trees and we tied them there. And we always use big ropes. You don't piss around, big heavy halters and big rope, because you don't want to go walking out of anywhere. So these horses are well tied to them spruce trees. And there was 4 big perching cross horses. And so we boxed up all the meat. We skinned the elk out. We boxed up the meat. We sat around and eating some lunch. And I told my dad, I said, I get out of here. I got to get a piece of tail. And he kind of laughs at me or whatever. And then you'll find out why later. So we sit there and have our lunch. And the meat's all in the boxes, right, standing there. You debone everything. If you go on the back of the leg, you can see the line, and you just cut along the line, and you can lift the bone right out, and the whole hip can go in the box. So you throw a rear hip in each one, right, the rear end in each box, each side. And so they're in there, and in the front quarters and whatever else you cut off the ribs and stuff, you put in the front ones. And then the antlers were over to the left of that tree. It's kind of where most everything happened. I wish Jimmy had taken another picture, but he didn't. And I'm standing there holding the antlers right up on the end, and they're still attached to the head. We cut it out. And my dad went behind me, so kind of where we're sitting, like south of like where that is, right? That's facing north.
Okay.
That picture.
So this is facing south or north. Sorry,
north, yeah.
South is behind the camera that's taking this picture.
Yeah. So Dad goes to the horses, which would be behind, like south of that.
Yeah.
And getting my east wing axe, I've cut quite a few heads out of antlers out of heads with an east wing. So I'm going to chop that out. And he goes to get the axe, and I have the antlers in my hand, and I'm rolling them around, kind of looking at this nice elk that we shot, and thinking about tasty elk steak that night for supper. And I heard a noise, a grunt. And I said, Dad, did you hear that? Dad says, no, I didn't hear anything. And then the wind is kind of blowing through the trees and stuff, so you never really thought too much of it. And so Dad is coming up with the axe, and I look, and that sow Grizzly is coming down with the 2 cubs behind her, down that trail just fast as you can imagine. I'm holding the antlers, and she's coming at me, and say, you were where, and my guns are just behind where you're sitting, and like where that log is, so I'm just over from that tree, and she's coming between me and coming at me, and the guns are on her side, and I'm standing there like, holy shit. And I mean, it's fast, just like that video at Revenant. I mean, she's coming down there, how she can belt her 50 miles an hour or whatever, probably half falling down the mountain, and come right at me. And I'm standing there holding the antlers, and she knocked me down and started throwing me around. And she'd grab me by my foot, and she'd throw me, and I'd hit the ground, and I'd run for the guns again, and she'd grab me and throw me.
Wow.
I should have said, it don't matter. I'd been in an accident a while before that, like that winter before, I'd flipped the truck 3 times in front of Murray's. Big truck had come at us. He crossed the yellow line, and then I swerved a miss, and buddy of mine yelled sign, and we hit the meridian and rolled the truck, and my back was really bad. Like I'd been going to chiropractor for 3 times a week trying to get so I could, go on this hunting trip. Right? My hunting trip's pretty important, and I just went and I didn't sleep very well. So anyway, so she comes down there and throwing me all over the place. And I end up getting rolled up on my side, and she comes over at me and grabs onto my leg and just goes to town on it. My pants were ripped off of me. Like, my pants were shredded. My coat was shredded. Wow. My old hat, if you notice that hat with the zebra hide that I was wearing, she chewed on it a bit. I count that as my lucky hat because she chewed on it a little bit and less on me.
Oh, man.
She did that, and then I'm still trying to so I get on my belly, and I'm going towards some guns, and I'm just on the other side of that tree, and she leaps in the middle of my back, and I feel everything just go, and she set my back like you wouldn't believe. I'm perfect.
Oh, really?
Oh, don't tell the government they'll want me to pay taxes for that or something. Yeah. She straightened my back right out, and then I'm laying there, and I look over, and she went down after Dad again, down in the creek where she had put him. She hit him on 3 legs. She hit him in the back and knocked him down the creek and broke his leg. So then she comes around, like where those elk antlers are. She comes around, and she's just north of that log, that post, that stump sitting up, kind of where that trail is. And she is checking out the elk legs. Yeah, just north, just a little bit over north of that. Yeah, right about there. She's checking how the elk legs are, because they're all deboned from the top of the hip to the hoof, right? There's all one leg, all bone, meat's off, and she's flipping them around like toys.
Oh, wow.
Well, I get up on my feet by this point. I get the gun from where that stump is, and I start firing into her, and I went for my dad's 444 lever action over my 300 bolt action, because lever action's faster. So I up and fired into her a bunch of times, and she just turned and went down into the willows north of there, down in the bottom, and run off. And then I yelled at my dad, asked him where the F he was, as I didn't really know, like everything was happening so fast. And he came up out of the creek and bleeding out of his mouth, and I thought, well, that don't look very good, and I'm standing there, my pants are around my ankles and ripped all up, my coat's all ripped up, and my leg is open, and I'm picking leaves out of the hole in my leg, which you could stick a deck of cards or that cell phone or whatever that is there, you could stick that in all the way.
Wow. Just a big old gash.
Big hole, yeah. All 4 eye teeth. The other one, I put my hand around the back of my leg, and my one finger went in there all the way right to my hand. Finger went all the way in there, and then the other 2 were smaller, and so I was picking the stuff out of my leg, and Dad says, we better get the hell out of here, and then them cubs come running back in at us, and Dad took a couple shots at the cubs, and they took off, and then we got on the horses, and we went out the way we were supposed to, that Jimmy said to go that way if we didn't, if he never come back, right? So we head out. We go south from there, heading across, and I come to this old culvert because that whole area had been mined, and there was a road, kind of trails going in everywhere, and they put a culvert across this little creek, and it looked like and it was all washed out. You couldn't get across where the culvert was. So I figured, well, it looked like a trail going down into the water there and up the other side. So we went down in there, and the damn horse flipped ass over tea kettle down into the creek. Me and the horse, and then the pack horse jumped in too, and we're flowing around inside this water trying to get up the bank. And Dad comes up. He found a better way to get across. Come on, Jay, we got no time for this shit. So we get up there and get back on the horse again. I now washed my leg, which is funny, handy. Yeah. And then we ride out, cross the river. Yeah, we had to cross the river, but it was an easy crossing there. And then got out in the main trail, and we were riding down the main trail. Of course, our pack horses have no meat on them. We had decided to leave the boxes behind because we were all ripped to pieces.
That's what you see in the picture here.
Yeah, that's why the boxes are there, and they were full of meat. So then we ride down the main trail, and Jimmy and his uncle show up, Kevin and Jimmy show up down the trail. Where the hell's the meat? And I turned in my saddle, and I was wearing my chaps. I put my chaps around my leg and sucked my chaps up as tight as I could. We all wore chaps, keep your legs from getting wore out, and sucked my chaps up tight. And you could see my pants were down around my ankles, and legs bare, and my coat's all ripped up, and my dad's coat's ripped up, and they knew right then that we'd got chewed up by a grizzly bear. And so we ride back to camp, and we tear camp down, and they talk me into not doing nothing but sit there and drink these 2 Mickeys of butter riffle schnapps.
Hey.
Kill the pain. So I sit there and I guzzle these 2 butter riffle schnapps down while we're waiting, and they get the horses all packed up and everything, and we got to get to McHugh Flats. It's another meadow down further, but we can get out with a StarTAC cell phone because that's all we got, right? We can get out with a cell phone from there. So we get to McHugh Flats, and I tell Jimmy, I said, tell your wife, do not tell my mother. I wasn't married, didn't have a girlfriend at the time, but I don't know if you know how a woman is.
Keep it a secret. Well, just so they don't worry, yeah.
Well, yeah. So he told Annette, and Annette got a hold of Fort St. John Ambulance Service, and Bailey's helicopter's a pilot with them, and they said, no, we can't come tonight. Ambulance service is getting too late, can't come. It's about 7:30 at night. And I found out later the pilot fought all night to come. He said, I can fly in the dark. It ain't matter. I've been in there. I know where it is. I can go. And they said, no, we can't do it until morning. So we're like, well, I guess we ain't hanging out here all night. So we get back on the horses and we ride. And I got to take a leak. Oh, shit. So
yeah, small bladder you're talking about.
Oh, yeah, small bladder. So get off. They drag me off the horse, pull that rotten old leg up over the saddle. I take a leak, get back on the horse, about 20 miles down the trail, gotta do it again, drag the leg off the frickin' horse again. Oh, yeah, like, I should never have drank that. But anyways. And so we get there, and when we come into that, to go hunting that fall, there was a bunch of newfies staying at horse camp, and there was a set of corrals there, and we knew there was corrals there. But we didn't realize that the newfies ran out of firewood and burnt all the corrals up.
Oh.
So we get there, and all there's left is a pole that they had for a tent when we get to McHugh Flats. And as we're coming into what they call horse camp, from McHugh Flats, at midnight, one of our horses decides it's time to dump their load and bucked the load off, and then we packed her again, and we're like, well, we'll just get up to horse camp, which was just ahead of us. We were going to ride all night. And we got to horse camp, and we get there, and damn it, the corrals are gone, and everything's gone. These hunters, they were quadders, they weren't horse hunters, right? So they burnt up the corrals. So we lost the corral, so we had to keep the horses tied instead of letting them in the corrals, and they could eat the grass in the corral. So then Jimmy and Kevin stayed up all night and let one horse go at a time so they could eat, so we could keep going in the morning if nothing become of the helicopters. And we slept in the lean-to. And I tell you, I had the best sleep I'd had because the bear had fixed my back.
Oh, yeah.
So I slept like a baby all night, laying there. And they bandaged me up really good. And actually, I should say that when we were at Canyon Camp, bandaging up my dang leg, we had those red bag first aid kits. It's still in plastic. Dad just threw it in the box, and we better take it with us.
Yeah, good call.
Opened it up, and there was no damn tape in it.
No.
Jimmy even looked on the list. He said, look at this. Should have 2 rolls of white tape. No tape. Well, we had a roll of duct tape. So duct tape the bandages to my leg. And I got pretty hairy legs. I don't know whether you know that or not. But
I had no idea.
Yeah, so there you are with duct tape wrapped around these hairy legs of mine. And we get there, and we get to horse camp, and Dad changed my bandages and ripped this duct tape off my legs. Yeah, which was quite nice. And then we rebandaged my leg up, and it's way high on my hip, right? And and then we stayed there the night, and next morning at first light, the helicopters come in. The male pilot, he gets me or whatever, and I'm like, we'll just go to the thing and I can walk on my leg. And, oh, no, gotta lay down. We're gonna tie me up. And they got me so I can't move my head or nothing. And, like
after
shit.
the whole night of riding on horseback.
Yeah, so they tied me up. I guess they didn't want me to hurt myself now that they were with me.
Yeah.
And they throw me in the helicopter. And I'm laying in the back of the helicopter and can't see a whole lot. Dad jumped in with this young girl. she had a scar on her chin. I remember that. I don't know who either one of them were. But the pilot, he says, yeah, I crashed a helicopter just right over there, like down in the hole. Right?
There you go.
Back in 1981 when he was in there doing the mining exploration in the halfway.
Now you feel
And I said, did you get hurt, man? He turned around, he said, you think I was always this fucking ugly? And his face was just a massive scars from hitting the windshield, of course, right? Like you've seen any of them accidents, they always, end up hitting the windshield, kind of knock him out, right? Yeah. So, yeah, the glass hit his face and scraped his face all up. And then he explained to me that he was trying to get to us all night and they wouldn't allow it. He was a little upset about that. I'm playing it with you, Corey. So we fly out and we end up landing on top of the hospital where they have the helicopter pad up there.
In John.
Yeah.
Which they don't have anymore.
No.
Fair enough. We'll skip past that.
Yeah, but I can tell you a story about that later. So then we're up there and whatever and get brought in. And my dad and I, they brought all our stuff down into the emergency room. We're laying there, stinking to high heaven in the bush for 12 days, 14 days around fires and stuff and all chewed up. And 2 goat-loaded rifles laying beside us because they let us put the rifles in the thing and they don't know that they're loaded, but they're both loaded in the emergency room with all our tack and our saddle, sleeping bags, stuff all laying around us. And Dad looks over at me and says, so what's enough a piece of tail for you? I said, yeah, I'm good for a little bit. We laughed about it. And so they got me bandaged up, and my dad bandaged up that leg and it never fell apart, the bandages. And then this older, heavy-set woman, she bandaged that leg up and it stayed in place, And the next 5 days, I run around that hospital and I'm walking with, walking around and stuff. And they had IV going into me to save my leg. They said that if they didn't have it, because bears are so dirty that my leg would go bad. Yeah. So I'm walking around with it. And the girls thought it was really funny. They were going to come and scare me one night. The ones working, the nurses were going to scare me. So I heard them. The one nurse had told me that they were planning on doing this. So that way I was ready for them. So I snuck up quiet as I could and kind of walked with my thing up. And they're all chattering away like a bunch of hens behind the desk, right? So I come over top of the desk and scared the shit out of the girls. So I got even on them. But I spent the 5 days there. And I'm laying in the hospital. And this old guy across from me was a black belt karate. He's in his 80s and on the end of his life. And yeah, he was Olympic karate.
Wow.
Yeah, so he was telling me how I should have karate chopped it in the back of the neck and I could have knocked the bear out and stuff. All that kind of stuff, right? We got along pretty good with the 4 different guys.
Oh, man.
And so then I got out. I'm in the hospital. And George McGarvey finds out that I got chewed up by a bear. So he single foots from his house over to the hospital and come barreling through the doors. And I got to tell him the story, right? Because he's my old cowboy buddy that I was renting a room off of at that time. No, I owned my place by then. But I had been renting a room off of him. So he had to know about the bear attacks. And then he runs over, single foots to every single newspaper place and the news and everything all over town. He's walking around telling the story, and he wanted to be the one to tell everybody, right?
No.
So his buddy had gotten attacked, and so he told them all, and they all come in, and they all freaking, everybody brought me a stuffed bear. I have more freaking stuffed bears laying around. And so we had to retell the story 100 times over. And nobody told the story that we told them. They told the story about the bear attack. But no one ever said the fact that the bears were so many numbers, like high numbers of bears that we had, and how it had gotten dangerous. Like anybody knew, the outfitters, they had to start taking 3 guys in to get all their animals because there's so many bears that as soon as they shot an animal, the bears were coming in. As soon as they heard that gunshot, they're coming in.
It's a dinner bell.
Dinner bell, exactly, because they knew they weren't going to get shot because it was against law to shoot them. And it's gotten to the point of being very dangerous. I mean, and then So then we're there we did that, and we're done, and we go home, and they're telling us that, oh, Mom can do a bandage on my leg, which would be fine. I'm laying on the couch, and Mom's supposed to stuff this material. That we had to put material into this hole in my leg, because if you allowed it to seal at the top, it would get infected and it would blow up. It would fester and blow up on you, and it'd be a heck of a mess. And one nurse, when I was laying in the hospital, she asked me, she said, do you drink much? And I said, no, I don't drink very much. Do you smoke? No. You don't do drugs? I said, no. She says, you'll heal up really good. She says, when you smoke cigarettes and you're drinking all the time and doing drugs and that, she said, you don't heal very well, because you have so many toxins in your body that you won't heal. So we go home.
That's an interesting little fact, eh?
Yeah, it was interesting, I thought. So we go home, and my mom's got to fill this hole up in my leg with this material, about 2 yards of material. It's like a ribbon. And I'm laying on my side, and I'm, come on, Mom. And she lived in a little house on my property. I turned it into a barn since then, but she'd come over from a little house, and she'd do this. She's going to change bandages. So I had to roll up on my side, and she's going to pull this stuff out. I can't do it. And I said, you got to do it. I got nobody else here that can do it, right? And so then she got pulling the stuff out, and then we got the stuff back in the leg, and we had to do that 3 times a day for a while. And then I went in, and I thought, well, I might as well go
They didn't, not to interrupt, but they didn't want to seal that up?
No, you had to leave it open.
Really?
Yeah, I had to keep it bandaged, and it was like that for about a month and a half before it ever sealed.
Wow.
And the bandages are, like, I don't know if you ever had to buy bandages, but it's really expensive. I went in and bought the stuff to last probably the first week, and it was $1,000 in tape and bandages and stuff. Wow. I'm like, wow, I can't do this. And then they did a dance at the Tower Lake Hall for me, and raised a bunch of money, which was nice because it helped with the bandages and stuff. And then my mom goes, well, you haven't got nothing else to do. You should join Friendly Matchmaker.
Hey, there you go.
It was a little deal in town, right?
Yeah.
She was pretty small, but so I did that, and then I seen my wife's ad, and I called her up and asked her if she wanted to go for coffee. She said sure, and I said, you want to go to the Humpties? I don't know very many coffee places. I guess a lot nicer place than that. She kind of thought, well, this guy's, pretty redneck, but I guess we'll go to... So I met her, and then, so she's right there when I go to the dance and stuff, and watch my mom have to fill the hole in my leg a few times.
Wow.
Bandaging me up. And
right at the beginning, eh?
Right. Yeah.
Might as well shock her at the beginning.
Right at the beginning, yeah. So, and then I found out later that Bill Clausen, her grandfather, fought for the helicopter pad on top of the hospital because Ken Clausen had gotten blown out of a power pole quite a few years earlier, and there was no helicopter pad for him and all that. And he fought hard to get that helicopter pad that I ended up landing on, and then later I ended up being his grandson-in-law, I guess you'd say. Bill was a very nice old
What a weird little
guy.
turn of events, eh?
Yeah, so he ended up fighting to get that built, and then I ended up coming down onto it.
Using it.
But I forgot to say that my dad was in the hospital. We're in there, I think it was 2 days hobbling around, and we had both gotten full body x-rays done, and then they walk up to Dad and they go, we want you to come into the cast room. You need a cast. Your leg's broke. Dad's like, well, I've been on frickin' crutches for 2 days telling you my leg was broke. They said there was nothing wrong with it. And so they took him in and put a cast on his leg. And Dad went home, and my cousin had to show up. He liked hunting, and he wanted to see me and look at my leg and take pictures and stuff. And I should have got a hold of him because he might have had pictures we could have showed my hole in the leg
throw
and
my
stuff.
way maybe after.
Yeah, maybe.
Throw it in the
I'll
episode.
talk to Gene and see.
Sure.
If he's got them, because he took a bunch of pictures. I had 2 pictures of him that the nurses gave me with a Polaroid. They took pictures, and I kept them in my lunch kit, and I end up throwing it out. And so my wife had to my mother bandaged up my leg for a while, and my wife was around. I don't know whether she ended up doing it or not, but we got to know each other quite well. And she had a little boy, Jaden, cool little guy, and I ended up adopting him later. and stuff. And 2005, we had this big black percheron on that trip, and I never ended up finishing him riding. And we had him in the corral at Bev's place, a round pen, and we'd taken him and we'd had some work done on him. This woman had rode him a little bit, and I rode him there. And then a week later, I put him back in there, and then in this corral, and I was going to ride him, and I ended up getting bucked off. This horse ended up taking off, bucking across the pen, and I come off, and I broke a 2x6 with my head. And my wife is there, and she runs to me or whatever, and I'm laying on my sides, and my skin on my head is open, and she's got to hold this shut, and I'm covered in
blood.
I'm covered in spiders and spider webs from underneath the fence, and she hates spiders, which I'll tell you right now, she wouldn't have helped me out. But she did that to help me out. And then they phoned the Fort St. John Ambulance Service, and I look up, and I'm like, oh, you come back to help me again? And the guy says, yeah, and he was the one that had helped me in the bush when I got chewed up. Oh, wow. So it ended up being, my wife had to hold the flap of skin on the side of my head, and it ended up being 19 staples and 4 stitches to hold the side of my head together. But my daughter was only a week old. So she put my daughter down and run to help me. And then my wife's got pictures of me holding my baby in my arm and a cap on her head and a cap on my head because it was all ripped open. But yeah, that horse hadn't got finished being broke because of the bear attack. And I ended up selling him. My wife's like, we just got to get rid of him. He wouldn't calm down. He kept wanting to buck all the time after the bear attack. I don't know if that had part of it or what it was. But yeah, so wife had lots of fun.
No kidding.
With my leg being chewed up, and then helping me out with my head getting ripped open. And then Jimmy had got a limited entry bear draw for that same valley, the halfway, and he went in there. And he seen the bear that he wanted. He seen quite a few grizzly, and then shot that bear. And within 15 minutes of shooting that bear, there was a dozen bear come down every direction, coming for him and that other bear, because he just shot. And so
it's a good way to hunt bear. Then is you just let a round go in the air.
You just shot in the air and wait for them to come down at you. They're gonna come. So then he went. And later on, I don't know, I didn't end up going with him that year. And he went to that site and cleaned it up and put the boxes underneath that spruce tree, tied them together, and the antlers and stuff like that. So we went and cleaned it up. And when we left that area, like when we left the other camp, we had to leave a bunch of stuff behind because we lost 2 sets of boxes. They were there full of elk meat. And we had to leave some food there and stuff. And we told the game wardens, and they said they were going to go into our camp. We gave them the coordinates of where the camp was. And the garbage fed in the bush, we still clean it up when we go there. From the bears and birds and stuff digging, and coyotes and wolves or whatever, digging it all up after we left because nobody went in and cleaned it up like they said they were going to. The game wardens went in, and they ended up shooting the cubs. They were about 100 yards from there up on the hill, and they got both of them. And a big boar grizzly, which probably Papa Bear, he was laying on top of everything. He put it in a pile, and he was laying on it.
Oh, wow.
And the game warden told me, because Claude de Boone come in, and Parker, I'm distantly related to Parker. My grandmother married his... Anyways, they come in and they're sitting on both sides of me, and I thought, oh boy, I'm in trouble now. This is in the hospital. And they told me that the boar grizzly was laying on our stuff because he pulled it up in a pile. Yeah, so that was the bear attack.
You go.
We've gone up probably a half a dozen times since then up in there. My daughter, I took her up this year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we do a bunch of fishing and stuff and had a good time. I got pictures on my phone on where we went. Yeah, so I mean, I'm not scared of it at all. I've been to that spot. One more snow. I went in the wintertime and got the boxes, cleaned up our mess right there. We couldn't clean up the camp because it's wintertime, so there's 3 feet of snow on everything. And the boxes were under the spruce tree, so we got them, brought them out. And then we've hunted around there quite a few times. This fall I went in and we went in the next year, and I don't know whether we didn't get anything that year with Jimmy. And then Jimmy went in a couple of times, and he went up into what they call low high and got a couple of moose and an elk in there. And the next time I go, Jimmy he ended up dying. He committed suicide. And my hunting buddy a few years later. So then I went up with my brother Fred and 2 other friends of ours, and then my neighbor. And we went in and hunted in there, and there was wolf tracks, so many wolf tracks, that everything was just like it was paved. You get to a wet spot, and it's just like, it was just like the whole cut line was paved. It was all wolf knuckles, like the feet. Yeah. There was so many wolves in there. And there was a native that ran into me, and he told me that he was on the edge of the lake, and his boy's sled died, and he said 50 wolves coming across the lake at them, and he's trying to get this kid's sled running, and they ended up getting it running, got out of there.
What do you fear more, bear or wolf?
I don't know. I've only ever seen the wolves once at that tent. My whole life being in the bush, and but I've seen lots of grizzly. Everybody says you never had a wolf. A wolf has never attacked a person. George McGarvey told me that there's just never been anybody left to talk about it. Time they're done with you, you're chewed up. The cubs,
I think there's some truth to that.
The babies have eaten you. They've eaten you right up, right? Yeah. So then I went back up in there this fall, and lots of grizzly before too. My brother and I seen a big boar up on the hill, knocking us. The boars are funny. They're like cats, right? They like playing with things. And he's working on knocking this big stump over, and then he pushed the stump over, and Fred and I watched him push the stump over, and then took my daughter up there, and now there is no animals left. The halfway valley is empty.
Really?
There was lots of buffalo, and then they made that limited entry, right?
Yeah.
So between all the buffalo hunters killing all the buffalo, and then they chased them out of there, and then the wolves and the grizzlies, right?
Well, that was something else worth
have killed them all off.
Yeah, when you have a predator that doesn't have any other predators, they're going to be like the one story you were telling, at the very beginning, where the Grizz was putting a run on that cow moose, or I think it was the calf you're talking about. Yeah. And, they're going to take out the big game, elk, caribou. Yeah. And then you got the wolf. That are able to get around pretty easy in the wintertime on the snowpack, especially with a winter like this where there is no snow. Oh, it's
terrible this year.
All the deer.
You see any grizzly bear tracks, don't hang out where they are.
No.
There was a guy, George McGarvey, said that it was a winter like this. There was not much snow. He tracked this grizzly. He's seen tracks of this grizzly bear in the middle of the winter over by Clayhurst where he lived. And he tracked that bear for quite a while, and it was heading over towards Montney, towards the valley, and then heading that direction. And then it got a hold of a guy and killed him. Jeez. More or less the first thing it got a hold of it killed and ate him because he was that hungry. There's not many berries this year. Right? It was so dry the last few years, same as that black bear that attacked those people above Dawson Creek. They're hungry. I seen a thing yesterday. I just thought of that. I seen a thing on Facebook yesterday. These guys looking at these bear tracks in the snow in the wintertime.
Oh, really?
And I was going to make a comment on it, but they're dangerous right now. If they're up right now, they're hungry because they never got enough food in the fall, right?
Yeah. Especially with the pressure of fires and everything else that we had. And the population, I don't think you can make a statement about it because it's growing right out of hand. Like I've seen just about any time I go towards the Sukunka Valley, every time I'm seeing a Grizz. Yeah. Some of them are close encounters. I'm in a vehicle all the time, right? Yeah. But I've had a couple of encounters now where Grizz have charged my pickup. Yeah. And, I don't want a different experience than that because that's scary enough. I mean, chunk of plywood as a forehead coming at you like that. And you realize it's going to peel that door open pretty quick.
Yeah. When we went up this fall, there was no more wolf tracks. The wolves have either left because the Halfway Valley is now empty. That Halfway Valley, when I used to first hunt it, there was dozens of moose. You see
Yeah,
moose
so
all the
you're-
time.
you're
Hundreds of buffalo.
You're attributing the lack of
Oh.
wildlife because of the huge growth
Of
population
course,
of
yeah.
of
Nobody
grizz
hunts it
and-
anymore.
Yeah.
So we go up there this year. Like I said, the wolves, there was so many wolves that it was all packed down the trails. This year there was no wolf tracks. A couple wolf tracks at the odd wet spot.
So they've moved on.
I only seen a couple of moose tracks, a couple of elk tracks, a little bit of buffalo, maybe like a cow and calf buffalo. That's it. They say they see them over as far as Fort Ware now. The buffalo have left that far. But the grizzly bear, piles of tracks all the time. I'm riding in front of everybody and I'm not telling too many people. My daughter's behind me and stuff. And I mean, we rode over top of grizzly tracks.
Here's a question for you. Like, we obviously knee-jerk assume that some of these decisions and rules and everything that they put into place, like that's one of the questions I asked earlier. Why did they protect the grizzly bear? And people are like, well, it's because, ignorance, or they think they're cute.
Yeah.
What happens now if the opposite is true? Like, it's almost like the assumption to think anything different than ignorance is an impossibility, but it's almost like they're doing it on purpose by design.
Yeah. They didn't really...
Protect the ultimate predator out there, and it takes out all the other... I mean, you're pretty much going right down the chain of now, even humans are at risk.
Yeah, there was so many...
Just throwing it out there.
So many bear tracks this year. No, exactly what I've thought. Like, from what I understood and what I've read, there was no real concrete reason why they did it.
No.
They just
whimsical.
Did it. Yeah, guys at work are like, oh, you have no business to be there. You shouldn't be there. No, we can all live together. I don't go running around looking for grizzly bear to go shooting and not tell anybody.
Yeah.
They do their thing, I do mine. We're all good, right? Same with the wolves. I mean, I'm not going to go hunting down all the wolves in the world. My dad ran a trap line, and he got a few wolves, but he didn't, he's not trying to exterminate everything. I like to I don't even hunt moose because we haven't got many moose around anymore. Let the herd grow up a little bit. Same as in the halfway.
The moose, I don't like how before they put it by draw, it was a few years ago, it used to be just by tag and away you go. And the Sekunka area was the only area in BC where it was open the last 2 weeks of August. So 2 weeks before any other area.
Yeah.
But they never regulated any of it. And the amount of out of province plates, it was like all of Canada descended on that small, tiny little footprint. And then they swing to the opposite end. Oh man, we need to protect the moose.
They go out and they decide to open up a moose season.
But they don't actually have a better approach. Like, why not keep it within the province instead of letting every other area descend on that area? Have a little bit more, put it on draw on out of area residents. Maybe control it a little bit different than kind of open border and then nothing, and then. How do you think that it's going to rebound when you're protecting every other predator? So wolf, grizzly bear, just about any other predator out there is protected. And then now you're not letting us hunt. The management out there, to me, when it comes to wildlife, is so wildly it's obviously out of touch with reality that it makes me go, who are these people and really what are the intentions? Because the decisions being made are just wildly stupid. Yeah. Just stupid. There's no pretty way of saying it other than it's ridiculously absurd and on the verge of gross negligence in a few different ways. And I wish people would kind of pull their head out of their ass, so to speak, and actually have a little better approach on it with some voices and input from people who have an idea of what's going on. Yeah. It could be conservation officers or whatever, trappers, hunters, industry, doesn't really matter. As long as they had input from people instead of having this sweeping, nonsensical rule implemented that is far more harmful than good on every level.
Yeah.
You want to have the dumbest, the worst impact on something that you're trying to protect, go to these people and come up with their ideas, because it's the opposite of what they should be doing. Just wild. And you're on the receiving end of that when it comes to encounters with grizzly bear.
Yeah.
But have you grizzly bear, like, can you eat them? Is there meat?
No,
any
you
good
don't
at
have to
all?
eat a grizzly bear. Black bear you can eat.
Yeah.
We've eaten lots of black bear growing up. Even that bear that was shot, and when my buddy was watching the Revelant, he shot that bear. He made pepperoni out of pretty much the whole thing. It was really good. Bear pepperoni. We used to smoke the hams. It was funny. We had a smokehouse full of pork, bacon, and hams when we were a kid. And my older sister opened the door, and it's full of smoke. And you'd have cloves and stuff, and different spices all over everything. Well, she's seen that inside through the smoke. And to this day, she won't eat ham or bacon because she said it was covered in bugs. You can't tell her that there's no way it would be covered in bugs because there's smoke. Bugs will not be in smoke. Oh, yeah. To this day, you can't tell her that it wasn't, But, yeah, we smoked quite a few, like the bear hams and stuff, and ate them that way when we were growing up. Because the dog kept bringing them in, or we shot, in the yard. And then after a bit, you kind of quit eating them because the dumps and stuff got to be so prevalent. And then the oil patch, right, moved in so much around Buick, and then the dumps and stuff from them.
Yeah, they get into the
garbage.
garbage.
Yeah, they'll get into anything, the bears them. Yeah.
So the full story, that was something that you had a complaint about when it came to people telling the full story. Where were the element you mentioned not including population density when it came to grizzly bear? What else about the story, were you wanting to make sure that when people told the story, they were touching or including some of the details about?
Well, we had explained how the bears had gotten so bad. Like, when you shoot a gun, like the outfitters are, the hunters are out there more or less scared. Like when Dad had to shoot that one grizzly that come down on him, we had to get a hold of the conservation, come in. Dad had to write a letter what happened. I mean, the hunter instantly had a sore back and went home. He had to saddle up and take him home like next morning. There was no way he was hanging out to see what else come down the mountain, right? After he paid for the hunt. And same thing, I don't know, like Ravi, they wouldn't kill the two cubs that were in on with that sow because they said he was in the area. So they let those two cubs go, and they were spotted the next year, and they kind of, they bluff charged a couple of people and stuff, those two cubs that were in the same spot the next fall because they were used to doing that, right?
Yep.
They seen what happened with Robbie, and everybody, like all the outfitters, and we told them that. We told them stories that the other outfitters before that had told us how bad it had gotten in the Tetsa River area, the halfway. Everybody's got a story.
You told them. Who are you saying that to?
Alaska Highway News, Vancouver Sun, Edmonton Journal, they all came. They all sent people.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was all over Canada. Huh. The story was, right? And then after I got chewed up, with only a few years, I had 12 different articles of different people that got chewed up by grizzly bears. There's countless. There never used to be, You never heard about it.
No, it's definitely becoming a lot more common.
Yeah, there was a few people, but not.
I've had two people on this one podcast that have been mauled by bears, and they all kind of say the exact same thing too. Population density, and it's usually after a single shot goes by. Mostly the hunters. The only one that kind of is a bit of an outlier when it comes to that is what you were mentioning with those black bears that attacked those two women that were hiking.
And she kept eating, and they kept saying they kept eating her, and that's why. A black bear will do that because there's other animals above them on the food chain.
So
and I think they were hungry with the lack of berries.
Yeah, unreal. My God. That's
what they'd rather eat,
so
right?
A black bear mauling is almost worse than a grizz then in some ways, where they're going to start chewing you up and eating you alive.
Yeah.
What a horrible way of going about that.
Oh, yeah.
My goodness. So you were talking about writing a book. Is that something that you've entertained more than just that idea?
I've had different people telling me and stuff. I've thought about it.
You should just I'll send you the transcript of this, and then it's in text.
Yeah.
Boom. Sure. Convert that to a book. Away you go.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be a bad idea.
This fall we've seen, like I said, I kept seeing in the grizzly track, and like lots of grizzly, probably at least 25 sets of tracks ahead of, like where we were riding on top of, and kill piles. There was a kill pile right outside the campsite that in canyon camp that we call it. We were still cleaning up cardboard and stuff from that time I got chewed up and we had to leave the stuff behind. We go in there every time and walk back in the bush, and you can pick up stuff and clean that all up, right? We work on that. And just out in front of camp, there was a pile of dirt that the bear had pulled its kill out from underneath. The boar that was on my kill site, on the kill, right? Like where we got chewed up. He ended up getting killed the next fall in Canyon Camp. There's a big valley, a big meadow in front of it, and he was in a little willow bunch. And I think it's Rose River Outfitters was leasing the halfway off the Blueberry Indian Native band. They were hunting it for them, and they had a bow hunter, and they actually shot that boar in the willow patch, and he ended up being, I think he's Boone and Crockett. If you look it up, you probably find like 2005, 2006, Boone and Crockett boar shot up in the headwaters of the halfway, and that's right at where our campsite was.
No, really?
Yeah.
Crazy.
They've left there now. They don't. There's nobody hunting it anymore. There's cabins built since we stayed at horse camp. The Blueberry Band has built cabins. Somebody's got to go up and fix the roofs. They're getting pretty bad. But they let us stay in there, which is nice. We go to the ranch now, and you pay $100 per person, a grown-up. They let the kids go in for free, which is really nice. And then you can keep your truck there, and then you can go in and hunt. But there isn't hardly anybody doing it anymore. I've seen lots of, like, as we got further up, past, like, Canyon, there was more and more grizzlies up there, like sign. And then lots of spruce trees. A bear will go along to a spruce tree and break the top off to tell everybody how tall they are. And I'm riding a tall horse, 15.5 hand high horse, looking across, and at my eye level is spruce trees broken with the tops broken off.
This is not wild.
So you're talking 8, 9, 10 foot grizzly bears running around back there, and big tracks. Great big tracks. Yeah, we've seen lots. Not everybody bothered us, but we weren't shooting our guns, if you know what I mean.
No,
we stayed there or whatever. And we all sleep with your gun beside you.
Yeah,
like not in your bed, but it's beside your bed. Yeah.
You were talking about pain earlier too, with the fact that you have what is that word again?
Cerebral palsy.
Yeah, cerebral palsy.
I've dealt with pain my whole life from that.
So
I get up, like even as a kid, I'd get up in the morning and I bounce off the walls, and by the time I get to the kitchen, I'm walking good. If you know what I mean. Everything tightens up in my leg while I sleep. My toe is flat, like my foot will flatten like this in bed, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then, but I'm heavy enough now being grown up that I can keep my ankle cord stretched. When I was 7, they decided instead of doing, I had the first surgery at 2 years, and then I had another one, maybe at 7. And I think I was 12. They thought, well, we'll put a cast on him for 6 months and use the cast to pull his toe up. Strengthen, pull my heel cord.
Strengthen that Achilles.
So I had to go in every month and get a new cast put on. And they fiberglassed it because the first one I broke because I'm still riding that damn pony of mine. And but I could kick the guts out of that pony with that cast on.
How come the tendon keeps shrinking? Once you stretch it out, it doesn't stay there?
It keeps shrinking like every night just about. It shrinks. Really? And then I stretch it. Now I'm heavy enough I can stretch it when I walk.
Man, and that's not very friendly feeling, is it?
I had a heck of a time. I run cat and stuff for Brandles and Rock Truck and Packer. And they put me on the old cats every once in a while, and I'm no good on them because with cerebral palsy, I have to think about what my right hand does. So the old cats, you got steering clutch, you got a deaccelerator on the foot, you got the blade, all on the right hand side. The average person would be fine because they're right hand dominant. I'm left hand dominant because my right side doesn't work. If I'm drying a plate with a towel and holding the plate in my right hand, if I don't pay attention, I'll drop the plate and break it. I've broken a few plates over the years.
Why is that a conscious effort? Like,
I have to tell my hand to stay shut. I have to
the whole time you have to keep.
I have to keep it closed. Yeah.
Isn't that that's not something most people think
No,
of,
like my hand will go for the cup, I don't have to think about that. But to make my right hand go for the cup,
it's a conscious effort the whole time.
You have to.
So a constant mindful effort to make sure that signal's being sent.
So I was never
stay hold of that mug.
I ended up getting kicked off the cats lots of times because I wasn't able to run them. After a while, I got where I could run the joysticks because it's just 2 joysticks.
Yeah.
So way easier. But
So
the
you're
old,
pretty good at multitasking.
yeah, you can, yeah.
So the pain, the chronic pain. Well, first let's talk about like you have to keep restretching it. Is that similar to like physiotherapy kind of exercise?
I went to the Fort St. John Children's environment, like the I can't pronounce it very well, the CDC.
Child Development Center.
Child Development Center. I did that my whole childhood going there. Until I was 16, I went to Vancouver every 6 months to see specialists for my eyes and my arms, my legs and stuff. And they did different things and tested. I mean, once I turned 16, the money was over, right?
Oh, I see.
The Kinsman helped out. I dropped a puck on the ice for the Flyers one time and different things. Kinsman was doing a broomball game afterwards. It was kind of fun to watch.
Cool.
My boy, if you look on YouTube, you'll probably see him singing at quite a few of the CDC talent shows.
Oh.
He got singing. He was doing cowboy poetry. He got into that from riding in the truck with me. He would do Brian Solomon's cowboy poetry.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then he went down the Kamloops and he won against grown-ups. Won $1,000 for the Rising Star doing cowboy poetry.
wow.
So, yeah.
Super cool.
He can memorize poems like nothing. But yeah, we took him into the mountain. We took him into the halfway and we fished a whole bunch. And then my buddy we went into Lohi, which is, and at that time, by then, the animals are starting to run out of animals. And we went in there for 9 days and we seen nothing. And we went into Lohi and we seen a couple of goats up on a mountain in there. And then we went a little bit further and we seen a cow elk in a little draw. And then way across the valley at the end where we'd rode all day, we could see a bull elk sitting there. I got a picture somewhere on my phone. Well,
Wow.
I lost that phone's dead, so I lost that picture, I guess.
How long does an average hunting trip take you? You take 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
2 weeks.
Good,
10, 11, 12 days you start getting where you're done and want to leave.
And you typically go on horseback?
Always horseback. That's
Always
the only way I'll hunt.
Oh, is it?
I've done a couple of riverboat trips, and every time you think you see something, there 15 boats go by, and they're all screaming, and yeah. So yeah, that don't work very good. And then truck hunting, same thing. You got all these people from down south, right, that are hunting everywhere, and so no, I only horseback.
When you're hunting now with cerebral palsy and you're needing to stay mindful of the right side,
I just hold the gun with hold the stock with my right hand and pull the trigger with my left. I'm left hand. I shoot left-handed.
So you're able to stay.
So I can just it'll hold
focus.
that. It'll hold that hand. That hand will hold it, no problem. Well, I do that. It's trying to move it, right?
Yeah.
Trying to do something with it.
So is that your whole right side? Like
Whole
your
right
legs?
side. Yeah, my
How's
legs.
that for riding horses?
Fine, you just throw your leg over and give her. Riding bicycle was entertaining as a kid because if I go over on my right side, you're falling. You're on the ground, you know.
There you go.
You're done, yeah.
Oh, pedaling. Like, how fine are the motor skills that you gotta always kind of keep? Like, does pedaling, is that an issue?
It's okay, not very good. It would stay. My foot would stay on, and I could push. I was never no Olympic pedaler by any stretch, but you learn how to. It'll do what the left side's doing. You know what I mean? My left side will pedal, so I just got to think about my right side, and it'll follow suit, right? Like,
Yeah.
see, my hand now, both hands are moving, right?
Exactly.
It'll move like that.
Wild. That's not something that I think most people need to.
No. Yeah,
contend
no
with.
people don't have to do that.
No.
Like I said, they let me play hockey for Bjork, right? I mean, we had to shovel the snow at that time, and we'd play at 40 below. One time it was 40 below, and we're playing outside, right, hockey or skating, and my sister actually fell down, and she was wearing figure skates. She played hockey with us as well, and she actually cut her leg with the figure skate, and it was so cold out that it never bled. And she went inside and it started thawing out in the bathroom, and she looked down and she had to get driven into town for stitches.
Crazy.
Because her leg had split open that far, but it was so cold out. No, I mean, a lot of help I had was I never got treated like I had cerebral palsy, right? My dad sure as hell wasn't going to admit that I had it. You know, he figured there was nothing wrong with me, right? So my mom had to fight a lot for me, which was nice. And same thing when I was getting my bandages done, there she was, right? Still fighting for her kid. It's like a Sal Grizzly. I mean, that's really like, even I say that sow Grizzly, that sow, I found out a few years later, I talked to one of the conservation officers that went in there. Her female, there was two, right? A male and a female. I think they were 4'4" and 4'2", I think, height. But the smaller one, the female, was sick. So how mad could you be at that grizzly for chewing me up? She had it made, right? She goes in there, comes down that hill. She's looking down the hill, goes, holy shit, I got 4 perchering horses. I got 2 men. I got an elk that's all boxed up, ready for me to put in the bank, freeze up or whatever. Build a den right there. She had her made. She'd have been there all winter.
Wow.
All she'd have to do is fight that boar off. That's why a sow is so mean, is they have to fight their whole life. They fight. A sow is more likely probably to attack you than a boar ever would be. Because a boar, like I say, like that one that was knocking that tree down, they're pissing around, having fun. It's like a bull, like a cow,
Yeah.
He's just hanging out, waiting for one to come into heat. And what he'll do, though, is, so when she was young, a boar would go in and try to kill the cubs to make the sow come into heat. And then he could breed her again.
Oh.
So the sow grizzly has got to be mean all the time. She's fighting her whole life, right? So that sow, her female cub was sick. They said it was just a bone rack. Whatever it would have been, right? Worms, probably, I suppose. I mean, you're digging in the mud all the time, right? Same as cows. If you let your cows chew your ground down and you keep them on the same pasture, I've learned in the last few years, then they'll get worms. But if you move them every day or every couple of days, an electric fence, which I do now, if you watch, I have them on the hill south of my place, you don't get worms. So that cub probably had worms and she was dying. So that sow was doing the best that she could do to save her. I hold nothing against her chewing me up, but just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But it was going to be a buffet for the sow.
Adds to that conversation we had earlier about the pressures that they're starting to experience.
No, exactly. But there's getting to be so many grizzly that, like I said, when I was a kid, the one friend of mine, his dad, he shot one when he was young in Buick. Yeah. And then Lillicos, you can see that. I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere. Bear gets... I seen a guy showed me it. Yeah. Because he said, there's bears in Buick or whatever. And he said, yeah, that guy. And it says pigs get attacked by that big boar grizzly. And then they go in there with a live trap, and trapped it. And they take it take it out and let it go. And that's kind of one of the things I think I forgot to say earlier, is I worked for Jahia Lake Outfitters, Westburg, and the first year we go in there, and the dang grizzly had attacked the cabin and ripped the walls out of the cabin. The boar grizzly had ripped the cabin. And I went inside there, and he chewed up the ladder. He chewed the ladder up into chunks of wood that we just threw in the stove. He chewed that up so small.
Really?
And the only thing, which I don't hold it against him, the only thing he did not chew into was 3 cans of tomatoes. And I hate tomatoes. They're not even fit for pigs. So I wouldn't have touched them either. But that was the only food that smart old bear left, was the 3 cans of tomatoes. But he ripped most of there was a loft in the cabin. It was made out of lap siding. I should have sent pictures. And
what were you thinking?
I know, but it ripped all the deck down, like 2x6 flooring in the roof. It ripped that all down. Jeez. And then the next year, so we fixed the West goes. I don't know what I was doing, but he went and sawed, or did we all? We got the cabin fixed, anyways. We fixed the cabin up so we could stay in it, and then the next year, we trail the horses in, and you go to Fort Ware to go into Jahia Lake. You got to go around the Injanika Arms. So you drive from Windy Point, which is just past. The place is burnt down now. There was a gas station and stuff. They're just past Mackenzie Junction. So you drive in there 250 miles and go up and around. And the first year we went across Williston Lake on the barge.
Oh.
With horses tied on a rope.
Cool.
Across from it was cool. And the waves were coming over the side of the barge and stuff.
No, Williston Lake is no joke. That's a big body of water.
I was glad to get ground again. I'm
a tide.
Oh yeah, I'm a land lover. I like ground. I don't mind crossing rivers, but so we get there the second year and we pick up 2 native boys from Fort Ware, and we trail in the horses. And Dad ended up running the little Anton Charlie. If you read, there's a book I could lend you if you give it back to me.
I'm not promising nothing. We talked about that earlier.
I know, that's the problem. I don't give out books, but it's about that trail, eh? So me and these native boys, we get to 8 Mile. Daddy forgot a raincoat. It's old Anton Charlie, which he's the kind of the bushman he was. He ended up dying shortly after that, 2 years or so after the book was written. His wife ended up killing him. Anyways, run into him at his cabin at 8 Mile. He lived out of the reserve, and my dad hadn't got a raincoat, so the horses had got to there, and then we stopped, and then old Anton said, I'll give you a coat. So then we go in this cabin and got this coat, the smokehouse he had kind of thing, stuff in there. He was a great old boy. I ran into him on the trail a few times, and he'd be just going down the trail with his 15 or 20 pack dogs and his wife. And his wife would have a big Trapper Nelson backpack on her back. And then he just had an axe and a 22 over his shoulder, and away he'd go. But he'd tell them that band where all the moose were and whatever was there and where to hunt, where to fish. And so I took the 2 boys and we went up and we got to Fox Lake camp. And then Grizzly Bear got in there. See, and I never thought too much about the bears at Jehiah Lake. And the kids look at each other and Charlie Boya was the one boy, and then Aaron Charlie. It's funny their names.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
And then Aaron Charlie, he goes, yeah, I heard that all the problem grizzlies around Prince George, they bring into here and they're letting go. We get the Fox Lake cabin. Then Grizzly Bear got into the cabin, ripped the door down, destroyed everything inside. And then Charlie Boy looks over at Aaron Charlie and says, and then your damn cabin at 18 Mile that we stayed in the night before. We went to 8 Mile and met his dad, and then we went to 18 Mile and there's a cabin there. And then we stayed at 18 Mile, and he said, all you had in front of that door was the damn wringer washer, the top off a wringer washer machine. You know what that looks like? It's the 2 ringers and then
it's a handheld, the base. Or not a handheld, it's a mechanical.
Mom said they were a horrible thing. You always got your boob caught in it, I guess. I never used one, but I guess women didn't like them because you always got caught up in the damn thing. They were horrible. Yeah. We had it when I grew up, we had no power at first. I was 17 before we had a phone. Eh? We were pretty Western in Bjork. It never got opened up until the 60s.
Wow. Have you ever thought about going back to something a little bit more like that lifestyle?
Oh, yeah.
How serious do you think about that?
I could do it at a drop of a hat. I've done it lots, right? Huh. My dad, I lost him a couple of years ago, but I mean, up till then, he was building cabins in the wintertime. That guy in his early 70s was still running the ridgepole cutting the knots off a log, running the top down chainsaw, you know what I mean? Sure didn't have no safety gear or a hard hat. Yeah. He was a hell of a bushman. I went in a couple of times in the wintertime trapping with him, and I mean, the amount of work that he did in his late 60s, early 70s, and pictures I have at home of him getting the sled stuck, and stuff. And, holy shit, yeah. To ever say that you didn't have bush experience, we had lots and been around bears, right? Yeah. Dad had that one on the outside. We go into that Fox Lake, and then he goes, and they're bringing all them bears in, and I'm pretty sure that's probably what happened at Jehiah Lake and Ludwig, is they would bring them bears in, tranquilize them, drop them off in the bush, go to Ludwig Lake, drop off a big boar grizzly there or whatever, right, that was causing trouble, and then the same at Jehiah Lake, and that's how them 2 cabins both got destroyed.
They're bringing in problem bears.
Problem bears into that country, and they made a heck of them. I got a picture at home of the cabin at Fox Lake. Maybe you should come over sometime. We'll have a look, and you can put them with my story if you want. But you can see the damage of that cabin and the ones at Jehiah Lake and Ludwig.
I'll tell you what. Why don't you label them?
Yeah.
Label some of those pictures. I don't mind throwing them on here. I think it'd be kind of cool to check.
But I mean,
check out what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's.
Label them so I can. Are they digital or are they hard copy?
Oh no, they're hard. They're
all hard copy.
They're all. Some of the originals are the old throwaway cameras, right? We all packed them around.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And then my best pictures of Jehiah Lake, my second year, is once I got to Jehiah Lake, they had a guy from Denmark, and I mean we all had $2,000 worth of hunting gear, and he had $2,000 worth of camera gear. So I got some real nice pictures in there.
Yeah. When it comes to pictures, first, you should label them. So it's easier for...
Because when I'm 80 years old and can't remember...
Man, it's a lot easier for people to...
I looked on the back of that one picture.
You know, real quick, though, on the labeling end of things, when it comes to, you know, even throwing a year on there, seems to go a long ways. But then also... having a hard copy has actually got a whole lot more value than some of the digital.
Well, look at my other phone. I lost all those pictures.
Exactly. I just realized this a little while ago because I was looking at, we're looking for pictures of my uncle who, he had passed away, so we're looking for all these other pictures. And anything from pretty much when digital pictures were a thing on your phone, they're all gone. We don't have any of it because everybody has a phone. So you think that a digital copy is easier to keep track of? Yeah. But it's the opposite. Everyone has a phone and it's chock-a-block full of photos, but nobody holds on to them for very long. But the hard copies from, you know, the 90s or even the 2000s on back, tons of pictures. I got
a whole big tote of photo albums we were looking at the other night because I was trying to find one because there was one of the pictures of a black bear that Dad shot that the dog brought to him.
And of a which?
Of the black bear that Dad had shot.
Oh, yeah.
That he had brought to him, So he's...
Cool. Yeah. Killing bears. Going back to that, that's unreal, eh?
Yeah. My grandfather one time went for a hike from the house. My grandmother's in the house, you know, putting her face on. And my grandpa used to call it. And he's out for a hike and this damn black bear comes out on the road and it chases him. Oh, wow. My grandfather stood 6'3" and would probably wrestle a black bear when he was younger. But that bear chased him all the way back to the house. And he goes, and I don't know if you, I haven't seen it in years, but you used to be able to buy buffalo board, black wall board, and you could put your fist to it, you know, like it was really soft. So he runs to the first building that he had, and that was the outhouse made of buffalo board. So he's inside the outhouse screaming at my grandmother to get the H downstairs, and Grandma's upstairs, you know, listening to the old radio. They had no power, but she always liked listening to our radio on batteries. So she's up there putting her face on, and Grandpa's down there roaring like a grizzly, and the black bear's outside the door of the outhouse, kind of scratching on it a little bit, I guess.
And he's in there.
And he's inside.
Trapped
inside that outhouse made of buffalo board, which, like I say, you could put your fist to it. Yeah. Because we used to do that as kids. I don't know if do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
It was about.
No idea.
About 3/8 of an inch thick or like a half an inch. No, maybe more than that. And it was kind of an insulation board. And it was really cheap to buy, and at that time you'd use it for the outside of your house, like the outside wall. You'd put that on, and then later you could put siding on, right?
Oh, okay.
It kind of was weather resistant a certain amount, the black paint that was on the outside of it. But anyways, this outhouse was made of it, and that bear could have pushed through there like nothing, eh? And Grandpa's inside. And so finally the bear leaves, and the dog maybe got left outside because Grandma come down the stairs, and the dog chased the bear off. So then a little bit later, and we heard about this, and then that night, my grandfather, he got to find the bear, but he had his 303 British at the time, and you could almost hear him a half mile away yelling at that bear as he's putting bullets into it. Shooting the bear. So he put 3 or 4 bullets into it, and we went over, helped him skin it. And he skinned that bear out, and he tanned the hide with battery acid. You could use battery acid, like in an old bathtub.
Really?
So he tanned the hide, and he had it on the floor of his house for a long time, that black bear. Oh, yeah. Yeah, but you could hear him roaring at that bear.
The tricks, of all, it's a lost art form, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of little things that you should write a book. You know that?
Yeah.
Why don't you do it?
Yeah. I might when I get older. Got nothing to do. I'm too busy chasing cows around and working right now.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, how's your coffee? We should wrap it up here. We're definitely getting a little over 2 hours. Why don't we wrap it up? I guess in closing, thanks for sharing all of that. I mean, it's just wild. I'd like to...
It's just, I wanted to kind of... it wasn't like we just come from Vancouver, you know, and I don't know, rented horse, which you could do. We've seen them. That Blue Creek used to rent horses, and these guys would meet us at the halfway sometimes, and they rented these horses. But that wasn't us. We never rented them. We owned the horses. We owned the gear. I still have enough stuff I could set up 14 head of horses and head out in the bush. If you ever want to go, I'll take you up.
That's not about it. I'd like to go. I might take you up on that offer.
They just acted like we didn't know nothing. And I went in there. I didn't say one thing I should say. Are we still going?
Yeah, we are.
I went to the chiropractor. I don't think I said that, did I? Went in to see.
You mentioned your back got put back
So
into place.
after I'm all done, and I drove up to Lisa Vandekamp. She's my chiropractor. I went in there and laid down on the table, and she checked my back out, and she says, "You don't need to come back. Your back is perfect." And that's why.
Unreal, eh?
Yeah.
Just
She
took a bear encounter to snap that back
just
into
popped
place.
her all back into place. But I mean, I heard everything. I'm laying there and I snap, 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 snap. You can just hear everything go crunch, right?
Wow.
She leaped in the middle of my. I mean, you think just like that there. She didn't get a hold of my head, but she leaped right in the middle of my back. Just after she had me on my side and chewed my leg up.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. But
you're
and my
lucky
sister,
not
which
to
I
have
never
had
said, my sister come and stayed with me, and I do not remember dreaming at all for probably 2 months. And she stayed at my place for 2 weeks. My sister Rhonda, she lives in Calgary now, but she lived down south at the time. And she said all night I screamed.
Really?
Yeah, that's all I did all night. I was screaming all night. And I don't remember any dreams or thinking about anything or
Just from that encounter?
from that encounter. Yeah.
I don't doubt
But the
it.
whole time you're screaming, you're fighting and swearing and punching and kicking. And like George told me, he said, if you bluff a bear, that's one thing, right? You can cover your head and you want to cover your head and your guts, right? You try to get on your belly and cover your head. But he said, if that bear comes in and that bear is coming in to fight, he said, you damn well better fight. And that's what I did, right? It was kind of a neat little story. That Snake Creek, right, runs into the Dunedin. So Dad and I we stayed in the bush lots. We hung out for a month on the Nelson River. My dad had the trap line. And we were on the Nelson River, and then we figured, well, hell, we'll go to Liard. I don't know if you've ever been to Liard at that spot with the Nelson River. That is a freaking big river. Like, you're on a little 22-foot riverboat, old aluminum riverboat. It had a cab on it. It was one that the forestry owned. And then we go around, and there is this old cabin on the headwaters of the Nelson River, where the Nelson and the Dunedin come in together, and they go into the Liard. Well, on the Nelson River side, the Nelson Forks is what they called it, that was a fort. We went in and walked around, and there was actually the foundation from the old Hudson Bay Fort there.
Oh, really?
From the early 1900s, right?
Nice.
And then we go over to the Dunedin side, and there's this cabin there. And I said, like, George McGarvey had surveyed all the North Country, right, with McCusker for years, with dog sled, and then with power toboggans. And that little story, I'll tell you about that. So they power toboggans, and they go into that cabin that I had seen, in this little cabin. And the trapper was in there, and he had a bunch of dog team. The dog team there, dogs and stuff, and they stayed there the night, which everybody would do that. He'd sleep on the floor or on the bunk or outside on a porch, whatever. I've slept on a few porches myself. And he stayed there, and then later on that winter, that guy had gone a little goofy, and he committed suicide. But he didn't let the damn dogs loose. So most of the dogs had starved to death. The Indians had come in. It's funny, you ever read that not Earl Fredrickson, but Fredrickson had 3 books, and he talked about going into the Nahanni River. People used to wander around that country all the time. There was probably more people wandering around there than there ever was now on foot. That guy in that book walked all the way from the Nahanni all the way down to Prophet River and then to Fort St. John.
Really?
On foot.
Yeah.
So we're at that cabin. He committed
used to be.
suicide, and then years later, when I'm in Snake Creek working, John Robidoux is at what they call Irene Lake, and he would put down a hammer and then go do something else. Come back when the damn hammer's gone. And then he's like, he tells me, he says, that's the weirdest thing I ever did. He said, I don't believe in ghosts. But he'd put his knife down, or he'd find the pot over there, or he'd find he said things were moved to different places. He knew he never put it. And it wasn't like there was an animal running around or nothing.
Yeah.
The hammer would be hanging in a tree or hanging on a nail where he was
just messing
working.
with him.
Yeah, it was the damnedest thing, he said. But he was up there by himself. And I almost kind of believe in animals like caribou in the mountains. They are in the plain, the ones up north. They move, right?
Yeah.
Migrate. I think moose and stuff do as well. Because on that Snake Creek, we seen lots of moose when we built that camp in there. And he's seen lots of moose at Irene Lake. But everything that we seen was all heading downriver. Now, I don't know what there is down there, a better wintering ground, maybe on the Dunedin River or something. But all the moose left that country by the time hunting season come around.
Yeah.
And we only got one moose in there.
Oh.
But on the lake, when he was building that camp, dealing with his stuff going missing all the time, and then I told George about it, and that's where I found out about that trapper in that cabin, and he said that he was in there and seen the cabin. But George, with them power toboggans, years later, he worked on those power toboggans, and he numbered all the toboggans, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And number 7 he never used, but he kept it, and they could go back and use it and take parts off it. And in the spring, everything was done. The sleds were all done. They took them, right? And the next year, he gets 6 sleds back. And he says, where's 7? It's wrecked beyond repair. George says, that was the best shaped one we had. We never used it. And he was pissed right off about it. And he said, why'd they do that? So then, years later, he goes to Whitehorse to the museum. Lo and behold, there is his power toboggan with number 7
really?
stamped in it.
No way.
And it was taken, the government kept it. Instead of giving it to them, they kept it, and it ended up going up around the Nuvik and Dempster Highway and stuff, and did a bunch of stuff up there with it, and ended up in
Someone
the
just
museum
came across it, found it.
Yeah, and they had it in the museum at Whitehorse.
Oh, really?
Yep. And it was sitting there. But I got pictures. I got articles and stuff at home, because I used to would grab his article and photocopy it and stuff. Like, oh yeah, there's a picture of him. I think it's the Trail of 42, where he's got 2 pack horses behind him, but he surveyed all this the lower Alaska Highway, like around Pink Mountain and stuff with McCusker, and he trailed most of all that stuff.
Well, back
He's
then
quite a
when
bushman boy.
life was a lot different, the stories
yeah.
were a lot more interesting, but nobody could really capture
We didn't
them.
spend all night looking at our cell phone, you know. You were dreaming about another mountain and stuff like that to go up.
That's very true. Yeah. Well, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, no,
I'm gonna say one more thing. I am gonna push a little bit on you writing a book. I think you need to. I think you need to be able to put it down on paper. I think it's going to help with trying to categorize and organize your brain in a way where it's going to get it out on. I think it'd be a project that
it's hard to just remember it all and try to keep it straight.
But that's why book is. That's why. Okay, so that's the exact reason why I'm saying write a book. I don't think it's necessarily. It has nothing to do with the money aspect. I mean, I'm sure that'll generate.
I don't think
revenue.
anybody's ever gotten rich doing the local interest stuff.
No, nobody. Maybe, I don't know. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of value in being able to put it down methodically. Like, it's just going to be a rough draft, and then you can, as you go through and keep working with it, all these stories, nuance, everything that goes into putting it down on paper. I think that's going to be. It's helpful. It's healthy. I think it's needed.
Like, even with this,
and you're capturing a lot. You've got a whole lifetime of really crazy stories that I think would be neat. I'd read it. I'd read that book. Absolutely. I think it'd be something good for you to do. We'll start out with sending you a transcript, and you can start organizing some of your photos.
There isn't too many people with cerebral palsy. Oh, I should say one more. Is we got a mare, and we got this frickin' mare from my neighbor, Braden Powell at the time. We bought this filly off of her and had it in a corral. And she was at the house, whatever. We broke her to pack, and we took her on that one pack trip with Mike and Bruce Buchard, my neighbor, and my son. No, it's my brother. Took her on that trip, and she just a frickin' retard. She don't flip herself over and stuff, and she had a foal. So there's little foals there with her, right? She got bred. We got her bred to Larry Paxman, another neighbor of ours, over on the 228 road, and got her bred. So she's in this dang corral, this miserable mare. We called her the HB off of Lonesome Dove, the hell bitch. And she's there, right? Whatever. I think I reached to touch the foal, and that dang mare leaped her head up, and she bit me right in the tip.
Oh, really?
And it turned as hard as a rock. Hematoma, and she bruised it bruised all the way down my arm and down past my belt buckle and up around my shoulder. The whole side bruised up. And I go, the reason I'm going to tell you this, I go to the doctor, see Dr. Watt in a few weeks, because it's as hard as a cut. Like, it's hard, eh? So what the heck, I got breast cancer or what? You know, like, what? And Watt looks at me and he laughs and he says, he says, you're my pet project.
Yeah.
I said, why is that? He says, well, he says, I don't know what you're doing, trying to get chewed up by every animal in the world.
Yeah, no
He
kidding.
said, now you got bit. And what it was, he tells me it was a hematoma from that mare biting it, and it's just hard blood, eh?
Yeah.
But yeah, he said he'd go to a party or whatever, and he'd tell stories that I'd tell him or happen and shit like that. Yeah. Dr. Watt was a good doctor. He dealt with my leg as a baby.
Oh, really?
And then up, yeah. Oh. He was pretty young when we first started, but yeah, he's retired now. I don't know if you knew he was in Fort St. John.
Not Dr. Watt. I don't deal with doctors.
I don't.
My wife
not
has
anymore
one,
at all. I don't. Yeah.
I don't have. We have a family doctor, but I don't know who the hell it is.
Yeah.
I hate that when you got to fill that out on paperwork. I'll call my wife and I'll be like, okay, what do we have?
The
Who's
last
my
few
doctor?
years, I haven't really even less. I never got vaccinated.
Yeah.
I was born with cerebral palsy, so I had a stroke already.
Yeah.
And I'd heard enough stories about it, and I wasn't going to have another stroke because of, So, anyways, that was my decision.
Hey, sign of caution. It doesn't hurt.
No.
I back up your decision.
Yeah, no. I haven't had any mistakes by doing it. I've had people that look down on it. And
They do.
I've had to leave, actually, a couple times because they found out I wasn't vaccinated and were scared of me. But there's lots of them now, I find out later.
But anyways, that's a whole nother.
That's a whole nother thing.
We won't go down that rabbit hole.
No.
But let's wrap it up for sure, for real.
We're done.
We're done. Okay.